Tatsuya was born into the Yotsuba family, one of the most powerful mage clans in Japan. The family's sole obsession was the creation of strong mages. While still pregnant, his mother, the clan leader, poured all her prayers and desires into the hope that her child would be a superhuman-like mage. His birth was celebrated, but the joy quickly turned to disappointment when they discovered he could not use magic. From that moment, he became an outcast, bullied and ignored by everyone. No matter how much he cried or screamed, no one paid him any attention, not even his own mother, the one who had wished for him the most. To hide the disgrace and maintain the family's public image, his mother assigned him as his sister's bodyguard. From then on, Tatsuya never cried again. It was not because the desire to cry had left him, but because years of pain and suffering had stripped him of all emotion. When the siblings arrived at their villa, they were greeted by Honami, one of the family's servants. They went inside, leaving the task of carrying the luggage to Tatsuya. Miyuki soon asked her mother for permission to go for a walk, and her mother instructed her to take Tatsuya along. Reluctant but obedient, Miyuki agreed. She walked ahead, while Tatsuya followed at a respectful distance. As she moved through the quiet streets, Miyuki's thoughts simmered with frustration. She considered it pointless for someone weaker than her to serve as her guardian. But her train of thought was cut short when Tatsuya suddenly stopped her. Moments before she nearly walked into a man, the man deliberately bumped into her. 3 off-duty soldiers took threatening stances, attempting to intimidate the siblings. Tatsuya stepped in front of Miyuki, his steady gaze and calm demeanor carrying a silent warning that he was the real danger. Provoked, one soldier launched a punch infused with magic. Tatsuya blocked it with ease, leaving Miyuki stunned. She knew he could not use magic, yet what she saw defied her understanding. After giving a warning, Tatsuya countered the next attack with a single punch that sent the man to the ground. Without hesitation, he took Miyuki by the hand and walked away, leaving the soldier sprawled on the floor. Miyuki was still reeling from the display of unexpected combat skill. When they returned to the villa, Minami noticed Miyuki's unsettled state. Upon hearing what happened, Hinami praised Tatsuya, but he dismissed it as nothing more than his duty, leaving Miyuki puzzled by his words. Mia, unwell, offered her own comment, remarking on his awareness of his position. With Mia unable to attend a social gathering, Miyuki was sent in her place to greet one of the branch leaders of the family. She disliked the idea, but Honami coached her on concealing her feelings for the sake of her future public image. At the party, Miyuki formally greeted Mitsugu, the branch leader, who led her to meet her cousins. Tatsuya remained by the wall in his role as her escort. The children quickly noticed him and rushed over. As he spoke to them, a faint smile appeared on his face, something Miyuki had never seen directed toward her. The sight stirred a quiet jealousy, even though she had never cared for him. Mitsugu soon intervened, taking the children away under the guise of helping Tatsuya, though in truth it was to keep them from interacting with him. Miyuki reflected on the family's internal politics and how they actively kept everyone at a distance from Tatsuya. To the Yotsuba family, Tatsuya was nothing more than a bodyguard, an expendable tool meant to shield his sister, even at the cost of his own life. Because of the family's cold influence, Miyuki never regarded him as a brother, and his distant, emotionless demeanor convinced her he felt no affection for her either. He was bound to remain by her side, not out of choice, but out of obligation. The tension eased when Tatsuya requested permission to patrol the grounds. His dedication to fulfilling his role inspired Miyuki to focus on her own duty, representing their mother with grace. The following day, the family decided to spend their leisure time aboard a luxurious yacht. Surrounded by wealth, they posed for photographs as the sea breeze carried the moment. Honami urged the siblings to take a picture together, but Tatsuya, as always, sought his mother's silent approval first. She gave a wordless nod, and to Miyuki's surprise, a blush warmed her cheeks as she smiled for the camera. The calm was shattered when the yacht abruptly swerved to evade an incoming submarine attack. Miyuki and Honami swiftly drew their cads, the devices that allowed them to cast magic, preparing to defend the vessel. When Miyuki glanced at Tatsuya, she noticed his empty hands. He carried no device, a reminder of what she believed was his uselessness as a mage. 2 dark shapes streaked through the water beneath them, torpedoes. Panic set in. None of their spells could counter such a threat. Then, without warning, Tatsuya raised his hand toward the incoming weapons. In an instant, the torpedoes were dismantled, reduced to harmless fragments. Miyuki's eyes widened in disbelief. He had no CAD, yet he had just performed advanced magic in a fraction of a second. Her heartbeat quickened. For the first time, she began to wonder who her brother truly was and how she might grow closer to him. That evening, Kazama, captain of the nearby military base, arrived at the villa to take a statement regarding the attack. As the siblings escorted him out, they encountered the soldier Tatsuya had knocked down days earlier. Recognizing him, Kazama compelled the soldier to apologize. Tatsuya accepted only after Miyuki's subtle nod signaled her approval. Intrigued, Kazama extended an invitation for Tatsuya to visit his base. The next day, their mother, preparing to attend a women-only event, encouraged Tatsuya to go, seeing it as a valuable opportunity. Miyuki requested to join, explaining that she wished to better understand the skills of her assigned bodyguard. Their mother agreed to let them both visit the base, but reminded them to behave like siblings in public, instructing Tatsuya to address Miyuki by her name, rather than as Miss. Upon arrival, they were greeted by Sanada, who led them to a training area where the troops were practicing basic magic without devices under Kazama's supervision. The training soon shifted to sparring matches, and Kazama invited Tatsuya to participate. Tatsuya's first opponent was a national boxing champion. The match began with a rapid barrage of punches, yet Tatsuya evaded them with ease and ended the fight with a single precise strike. His next challenger was a karate black belt, and Kazama instructed him to go all out despite facing someone so young. As the soldier advanced, Sanada observed that Tatsuya was approaching the match as if it were real combat, keeping his distance in case of hidden weapons. The fight ended with Tatsuya countering the attack and flipping the soldier to the ground. Watching a young teenager defeat fully trained soldiers stirred the unit's pride, and Kazama called for a final match. Joseph, the same soldier Tatsuya had defeated on the first day, volunteered, eager to redeem himself. Kazama confirmed Joseph's skill, and Tatsuya agreed to the bout, despite Miyuki's unease. This time, the match would allow the use of magic. Miyuki protested, but Tatsuya dismissed her concern, noting that magic was essential for a magician. Tatsuya used his agility to create distance before casting a stunning spell, taking Joseph down. The match concluded when Tatsuya unleashed Graham Demolition, disabling Joseph's magic entirely and securing victory. The technique, an S-ranked spell capable of destroying enemy magic, left everyone astonished. After the sparring, Kazama invited the siblings for tea to discuss the technique, while Sanada offered to show Tatsuya the CADs he was working on. The devices caught Tatsuya's interest, and in the days that followed, Miyuki noticed him working tirelessly in his room on CADs, though she could not understand the reason. The calm was abruptly broken by the blare of air raid sirens. An announcement reported that a patrol boat had been attacked off the coast, and the island was under missile fire. Citizens were urged to evacuate. Tatsuya appeared to inform them that Kazama had offered shelter at the base. At that moment, the phone rang. Honami relayed that it was Miya's sister, advising them to take refuge at the base and to have Tatsuya's limiter removed. Miya agreed and instructed Tatsuya to request transportation from Kazama. Upon arrival at the base, Joseph guided them to a break room, where they waited with another family until the shelter was ready. Miya and Honami both sensed that something was wrong, but the group of four waited in silence until the sound of gunfire reached them. Tatsuya attempted to use magic to scout the area, only to find the room shielded, blocking his view of the outside. Miya ordered him to investigate, but he hesitated, worried about what might happen to Miyuki in his absence. His words triggered Miya's fury when she realized he had referred to his sister by name, as if they were equals. Her temper flared, and she reminded him sharply of his status as nothing more than a bodyguard, forcing an apology from him. To ensure obedience, she used magic to compel him to follow her command. Outside, Tatsuya found himself in the middle of a gunfight between the base personnel and enemy forces aided by traitors. Inside, a soldier named Kinjo entered with 3 comrades, assuring the civilians that he would lead them to safety. Honami informed him that one member of their group had stepped out to assess the situation, while Miya suggested that the soldiers take the other family first. Honami briefly thought this was concern for her son, but Miya clarified that she simply did not trust those men. Before the situation could change, Joseph appeared and called out to Kinjo, who opened fire without warning. Honami immediately raised a barrier to protect Miya and Miyuki, but one of the traitors unleashed a magic suppression spell, cutting off their ability to fight. Joseph and Kinjo exchanged heated words, and when Joseph struck a nerve, the suppression weakened. Miyuki seized the opportunity, eliminating the caster and freeing everyone from its effects. Kinjo's rage was instant, and he turned his gun on the 3, cutting them down. Moments later, Tatsuya burst through the wall, using the CAD he had been working on to disintegrate all 4 traitorous soldiers. His gaze fell on Miyuki lying lifeless in a pool of blood, and panic overtook him. Dropping to his knees, he called her name and placed a hand on her chest, but she did not respond. She was dead. Refusing to accept it, he shouted that he would not let her die, and began casting a unique magic spell. In her unconscious mind, Miyuki found herself alone in a ruined, frozen city. She heard Tatsuya's voice calling to her, and sorrow filled her as she regretted the way she had treated him all her life. She wished for a chance to apologize, but believed it was too late. As she collapsed, a wave of magic washed over her, repairing her wounds and restoring her body to its state before she had been shot. She opened her eyes, realizing it was Tatsuya's magic, and marveled at its power. When her recovery was complete, Tatsuya embraced her in relief. She returned the hug, unwilling to let him go as he rose to protect the others. Her attention shifted to their mother's motionless form, riddled with bullet wounds. For the first time, she addressed him as brother with sincerity. He healed and revived both Miya and Honami, and as they regained consciousness, the base doctor moved to examine Mia's condition. Kazama offered an apology for the actions of the traitors, but Tatsuya demanded an explanation. Kazama revealed that the other family had been the intended target, and his family had been taken as collateral. He then outlined the situation. The enemy now controlled the waters surrounding the island, and land troops had landed along the shoreline near the village. Realizing the situation, Tatsuya requested that his family be placed in the most secure location available. He also asked for armor and equipment, preparing to confront the enemy directly. When Kazama questioned his reason, Tatsuya explained that it was revenge for the death of his sister. Kazama made it clear that he would not permit the killing of non-combatants or those who surrendered, but Tatsuya's eyes turned cold, as he promised the enemy would have no chance to yield. With that, Kazama agreed to deploy him alongside the unit. As Tatsuya moved to leave, Miyuki clung to him, urging him not to go. He told her he had to. They had harmed the only thing that mattered to him. The choice of words caught her attention, but he only told her she was old enough for their mother to explain. Confident in his power, he assured her there was no one capable of defeating him. From their safe position, the family watched as Tatsuya fought alongside the military against the invaders. Honami described the scene as a living nightmare enemy. Soldiers were disintegrated by his magic, and whenever his allies were struck down, he revived them without hesitation. Disturbed and curious, Miyuki turned to her mother for an explanation. Mia chastised her for calling him brother before revealing the truth. Tatsuya had been born a defective magician. In the Yotsuba clan, true magic meant altering information to create a specific spell. Tatsuya's ability, however, was limited to destroying and restoring information on an overwhelming scale. Multiple locks were placed on his power to prevent him from taking revenge or destroying the clan. His brain could not alter magic information, so Mia conducted numerous experiments to force it to change, stripping him of all emotions, except one, his deep bond with Miyuki. When all attempts failed, Mia decided to use his defective power, and that unwavering attachment, binding him to the role of her bodyguard. The revelation brought Miyuki to tears. Turning back to the screen, she wondered how she could ever repay him for all he had done. As the battle neared its end, 6 ships broke away from the enemy fleet, attempting to flee. The soldiers prepared to intercept, but the base commander ordered them to stand down. Only Sanada, Kazama, and Tatsuya remained. In Tatsuya's hands was a massive sniper-type CAD of his own design. Seeing it, Honami requested permission to deploy and support him. Their mother gave her consent, appearing to understand exactly what Tatsuya intended to do. Honami joined him, deploying her shields to absorb the incoming bombardment, dedicating herself entirely to defense so Tatsuya could focus on his attack. Her efforts bought him the time he needed to unleash his spell. Channeling immense power, Tatsuya activated Material Burst, obliterating the enemy fleet in a single strike and generating a massive tsunami as the survivors retreated. When they reached safety, Tatsuya turned to see Honami collapse. She had exhausted every last drop of her magic power shielding him. With her final breaths, she expressed her satisfaction in choosing the moment of her death, one in which she fulfilled her true duty and died as a person, not as a manufactured tool. She urged Tatsuya to learn from her choice, then closed her eyes for the last time. 3 years passed after the infamous Okinawa incident, an event that earned Tatsuya the fearsome title of God of Destruction. In its aftermath, he chose to continue his education at Magic First High School, an affiliated institution of the National Magic University. Despite his vast theoretical knowledge, his practical test results placed him in the second course, a ranking for students with weaker practical skills. It's matriculation day at First High School. Miyuki expresses her disappointment that Oni-sama is a reserve student despite scoring the highest on the entrance exam. Oni-sama clarifies that practical skills counted more than test scores, so he's just lucky to have been admitted at all. Miyuki counters that no one can beat him in academics or martial arts, but he interrupts her. He says she always gets upset on his behalf, and he cares about what she does for him. Miyuki blushes, and Oni-sama reminds her that she's smart, so he can't wait to see her shine as a full Course 1 student. Miyuki gets his point and apologizes for being selfish. Oni-sama watches the school building while some girls pass by, talking about how excited he seems, even as a reserve. Shortly after, a female student asks if he needs help with anything. Oni-sama recognizes her as a Course 1 upper-class student, so he bows and stays silent. She introduces herself as Segusa Mayumi, the student council president. Oni-sama introduces himself as Shiba Tatsuya. His name rings a bell for her, and she tries to ask him more, but another girl interrupts to tell Saigusa that rehearsals are starting. In the matriculation hall, Tatsuya spots the sitting arrangement of blooms and weeds. Some weed students ask to sit next to him and introduce themselves. The matriculation ceremony begins, and Tatsuya's sister, Shiba Miyuki, is called up to give a speech as the representative of the incoming class. Outside the hall, Mizuki and Erika ask him if he wants to check out their homeroom, but he declines, saying he's waiting for his sister. Mizuki asks if Miyuki is his sister, and he confirms it. Tatsuya praises Miyuki for recognizing the relationship, and she explains that she sensed their auras and noticed they have similar commanding gazes. Tatsuya compliments her sharp eyesight, but mentions that she has hypersensitivity to spirit particle emissions, making it unsafe for her to watch his secrets. Miyuki calls out to him, breaking his train of thought. She arrives with the student council president and her colleague. Miyuki teases him about dating when she spots Mizuki and Erika, but he declines, introducing them as his classmates. Tatsuya notices the student council is still hanging around, prompting him to ask Miyuki if they're done with her. The president takes it as her cue to leave, telling Miyuki they'll discuss more details next time. She informs Tatsuya that they'll have a long chat later, then exits, while her colleague frowns in frustration. Later that night, Tatsuya notices Miyuki's expression when she walks to get coffee, and he asks her what's wrong. She explains that she received a call from their grandfather in Sayuri, congratulating her on starting high school. She wonders if they contacted Tatsuya as well, but he says they didn't. Miyuki angrily freezes the table, complaining they couldn't even send him an email, but Tatsuya calms her down. He explains that he disappointed their father by choosing to go to high school instead of taking over the family business. Tatsuya says it doesn't make him angry, he just sees it as his father relying on him. Tatsuya and Miyuki visit a temple, where Tatsuya spars with some shinobis. Mr. Yakumoy, Tatsuya's master, sneakily approaches Miyuki, and she scolds him. He jokingly teases her about getting into high school, which rattles her until Tatsuya steps in to disrupt him. They end up dueling, and even though Tatsuya tries his hardest to block the attacks, he loses. Miyuki uses magic to clean her uniform and Tatsuya's clothes. At school, Tatsuya types quickly on the computer, making Mizuki and Erika curious about what he's doing. He tells them he's checking the curriculum and signing up for classes. Another student praises his speed and introduces himself as Leo. He asks about Tatsuya's signature magic spell, and Tatsuya explains he wants to be a magic engineer since he struggles with practical skills. Leo then asks who Erika is, and they bicker over each other's rudeness. During lunch, all four of them sit together and talk about their interests. Miyuki arrives and asks to join them, but some Course 1 students show up and suggest she eat with them instead of hanging out with weeds. Leo stands up to confront them, but Tatsuya declares he's finished eating and wants to leave. At the end of the school day, Miyuki's classmates try to prevent her from leaving with Tatsuya because they want to talk. He tells her to stop associating with weeds. Mizuki questions what makes the other students so superior, even though they just enrolled. The gang leader decides to prove it. He pulls out a gun to threaten them, but Tatsuya discreetly stops him. Another Course 1 student attempts to attack them, but a female student yells for them to stop. She freezes time and leaps to attack until the president arrives to intervene. Mari, the head of the disciplinary committee, tells them to follow her to give their statements, but Tatsuya steps forward to defend everyone and prevent any penalties. He cleverly twists Mari's words to protect the female student, earning her comment that he's skilled at deceit. Mari and Tatsuya are staring at each other until Miyuki interrupts them. Segusa tells Mari to brush off the situation since Tatsuya said it was a learning experience for him. She advises them to avoid self-learning that involves activating magic due to some restrictions. Mari decides to let it go and asks for Tatsuya's name on her way out, saying she'll remember it. The Course 1 gang leader introduces himself as Morisaki Shun and tells Tatsuya to forget any idea that he owes him anything. Miyuki suggests they head home, but the female student Tatsuya covered for approaches them and apologizes. She introduces herself as Mitsui and offers to walk with them to the station. On their way, they talk about Miyuki's CAD, and she explains that Tatsuya puts her at ease when he keeps it working properly. Mizuki and Leo praise him for his skills and understanding of the OS. Erika asks him to check hers, and he says he feels unsure about messing with a unique CAD like hers. Erika calls him amazing for picking up on it. Leo identifies it as an engraving type spell, and Erika explains the concept to him. He continues, stating that she needs to feed it pigeons constantly, and asks how she hasn't run out of energy. Erika says she knows that's his area of expertise, but she doesn't use much because she only utilizes the pigeons at the moment of extension and impact. She compares it to the principle of helmet splitting. The others stare at her in shock, and Miyuki explains that helmet splitting is a technique classified under secret skills or arcane arts, which means it's not just about having a lot of pigeons. The next day at school, Segusa calls out to Tatsuya and invites them for a chat during lunch, which they agree to. Miyuki and Tatsuya arrive at the student council room. The president introduces the student council members: Mari, the disciplinary committee chair, Ichihara, the treasurer, and Azusa, the secretary. After lunch, Segusa gets straight to the point, explaining that the student council president is elected while other candidates are chosen and dismissed by the president. She mentions they always appoint a first-year representative to the student council and asks Miyuki if she would accept the position. Miyuki looks to Tatsuya for his opinion, and he signals her to accept. Miyuki stands up and agrees to their position, but asks if her brother can join the student council as well since he's talented. Ichihara tells her there's a rule about student council officials being chosen from Course 1 students, meaning the entire student body would have to vote for a change if they want to accept him. Miyuki sadly apologizes for being forward. Saigusa confirms Miyuki's acceptance and says Azusa will explain her duties in detail. Mari interrupts to tell Saigusa about a vacant spot in the disciplinary committee, suggesting that a Course 2 student taking the spot wouldn't break the rules. Saigusa agrees and instantly nominates Tatsuya for the position. Tatsuya tries to decline, saying he doesn't know what the duties entail and feels he should have a say. Ichihara points out that neither does Miyuki, but she accepted. Saigusa brushes this off and explains to Tatsuya that the disciplinary committee is in charge of maintaining order at school. Tatsuya again tries to avoid the role, saying he's a Course 2 student and not skilled enough to stop others from using magic during conflicts, but Mari insists she'll handle them with her strength. She suggests they continue the discussion after school. During training, Tatsuya tells his classmates about the invite, and Erika warns that it's dangerous. Tatsuya tests his speed and realizes he's too slow. Miyuki and Tatsuya walk into the student council office. The vice president, Hattori, passes by Tatsuya, introduces himself to Miyuki, and welcomes her to the council. Saigusa says it's time to get started, and Mari asks Tatsuya to follow her to the disciplinary committee headquarters so he can observe and learn. Hanzo interrupts, disagreeing with Tatsuya's appointment to the committee because no weed has ever been appointed. Mari scolds him for labeling a student as a weed in front of her. Hattori further comments that being on the disciplinary committee requires practical skills, but someone like him can't handle it since they're inferior. Mari explains that Tatsuya has the eyes and mind to read activation sequences directly, allowing him to accurately predict spells to be activated. Hattori doesn't believe he has that skill. Mari states that she appointed him because she wants her committee to avoid discrimination between the two courses. Hattori expresses his disapproval to the president, but Miyuki interrupts him. She states that Tatsuya cannot be defeated in battle, but Hattori tells her she shouldn't let her judgment be clouded by nepotism as an aspiring magician. Miyuki insists her judgment is clear, but Tatsuya stops her. He challenges Hattori to a simulated battle to prove his sister right. Everyone is surprised, and Hattori accepts the challenge, saying he will show Tatsuya his place. On the way, Miyuki apologizes to Tatsuya for getting him into trouble, but Tatsuya reassures her. He reminds her that she gets angry for him. He suggests she say something more suitable for the moment, and she wishes him good luck. Tatsuya arrives at the practice room and sets up his CAD in the shape of a gun. He explains to Mari that he doesn't have the processing ability to master a general CAD. Hattori laughs at him and comes up with a plan to defeat him. Mari sets the rules, and the battle begins. But to everyone's shock, Tatsuya defeats Hattori immediately. Mari kicks things off by asking Tatsuya if he used a self-acceleration spell, but Tatsuya says no, explaining that it was just a genuine physical technique. Miyuki jumps in, proudly saying her brother is practicing ninjutsu from the notorious Yakumo Kokonoe, which surprises everyone. Saigusa wonders if the spell he used in the attack was ninjutsu, since it looked like he was releasing Sion waves. Tatsuya confirms this, and explains how Hattori ended up knocked out. Ichihara analyzes his techniques and questions how his technical score on the entrance exam could be so low despite his high processing speed. Azusa checks his CAD and realizes it's a silver horn made by a mysterious genius magician, and she gets all excited about it. Ichihara runs the numbers and wonders what exactly Tatsuya has accomplished. He clarifies that, in this school, multivariable evaluations don't focus on processing speed, calculation scale, or interference intensity. Hattori regains consciousness and elaborates that in the practical exam, magic skill scores depend on spell invocation speed, the complexity of the magic sequence, and strength in target data rewriting. He points out that tests often don't reflect a person's true abilities. Hattori approaches Miyuki and apologizes for his comment about nepotism, and she apologizes back for being out of line. Mari reminds Tatsuya about their plan to visit the disciplinary committee headquarters. Once there, Mari apologizes for the messy boardroom. Tatsuya offers to clean it up, saying as an aspiring magic engineer, he can't stand the place. Mari questions why he wants to be an engineer given his combat skills, but Tatsuya explains that at his level, he can't expect more than a level C license no matter what he does. Mari reminds him why she recruited him, but Tatsuya believes that the upper-class students in Course 2 might not appreciate being overseen by a level 1 student. Mari insists he would handle the first-year students better. They shouldn't have any biases since they just started. Tatsuya admits he's not so sure because someone told him, "I'm never going to acknowledge you." When Mari asks if he means Murasaki, he nods. She informs him he'll be joining the committee under a faculty recommendation, which flusters Tatsuya, prompting Mari to tease him. Two students walk in to tell Mari they've finished the day's patrol, and there were no arrests. They notice Tatsuya, and she introduces him as a Class 1E student. One of them corrects her that the proper term is Course 2 student. Mari playfully warns them to be careful if they don't want to get beaten. She shares the news about Hattori's defeat, and they're surprised since no student has ever beaten him before. They gladly welcome Tatsuya to their team. Mari expresses her frustration with the school's silly labeling of blooms and weeds, but thankfully, both students get her vibe, and have used their recommendation slots to pick people who aren't affected by the bloom, weed biases, so that the committee won't be awkward for him. They both extend their hands and introduce themselves. Later that night, Miyuki visits Tatsuya's room and asks him to calibrate her CAD to match the feature he used in battle since she feels she's lacking in that area. Tatsuya explains that she has the power to completely overwhelm her opponents with her magical abilities, so conventional fighting methods may not work for her. Still, she insists, and Tatsuya decides to do some adjustments, so she won't have to use her magic. She takes off all her clothes, and he scans her body. After finishing the process, Miyuki hugs Tatsuya from behind and teases him, saying she feels embarrassed, but he seems so calm because he doesn't see her as a girl. Tatsuya replies that if he did, it would cause problems. She asks if he's more interested in Segusa or Mari since he enjoys talking to them. Miyuki punishes him with her magic for having inappropriate thoughts while surrounded by upper-class women. Tatsuya falls into a trance and wakes up the next day. Miyuki apologizes for taking her prank too far. Mari talks to the committee about their roles and responsibilities. She introduces Tatsuya and Morisaki as the new replacements for the graduating students, assuring the committee of their skills. After the meeting, Mari gives them their tools and a CAD each, which they can use on school grounds. Tatsuya asks if he can use the committee's equipment as CAD. She agrees, but mentions that it's outdated. Tatsuya takes them anyway because they're high-quality items meant for experts. Mari calls him amazing before leaving. Morisaki tells Tatsuya to get over himself since there's no way he can activate magic using 2 CADs at once as a lowly Course 2 student. At the school fair, Tatsuya sees Erika being pressured to join some clubs, and he rushes to help her. When they stop running, he accidentally sees her cleavage, and she reacts. He apologizes, and she asks him to stay with her for the rest of the day if he's truly sorry. They watch a sword fight exhibition, but Tatsuya notices she's not excited. Erika finds it boring. Suddenly, some students start arguing and challenge each other to a fight. Erika identifies them as Mibu and Kirihara. The fight begins, and Mibu defeats Kirihara, claiming that in a real sword fight, she would have seriously injured him. Kirihara then suddenly draws his sword and tries to attack, but Tatsuya instantly rushes in to stop him. He informs the headquarters about the situation while Kirihara's friends angrily try to attack him, but he deflects their blows. Mibu wants to help him, but her instructor holds her back, watching Tatsuya in awe. Tatsuya stands in front of the committee and shares his experience. He states that he reported Kirihara to the health committee because he injured him while trying to take him down, but he didn't push further since Kirihara admitted his mistakes. The committee accepts his judgment, while Mari mentions she won't forward the case to the correctional committee. She asks Jumonji for his opinion, and he praises Tatsuya's decision, adding that he'll counsel him for using a lethal spell. Mari checks with Tatsuya to confirm if Kirihara was the only one using magic, and he affirms that he was. They thank him, and he leaves the room. Tatsuya apologizes to his colleagues and Miyuki for being late to dinner. Leo starts interrogating him about the rank B lethal spell Kirihara used, saying Tatsuya is lucky he didn't get hurt. Tatsuya explains that the spell has a limited effective range, making it similar to handling a sharp sword. Mizuki, worried, points out that it sounds easy to deal with a real sword, but Miyuki reassures her that Tatsuya is strong and unbeatable. Miyuki mentions that nullifying magic sequences is Tatsuya's specialty and questions if he used cast jamming. He admits he can't compete with her. She playfully says she can see right through him. Their colleagues joke that they seem like a couple because of their interactions. Leo asks about cast jamming, and Erika explains he needs an Antonite to activate it. Mizuki wonders how he got it since it's pricey. Tatsuya clarifies that it's not just about the cost. Civilians aren't allowed to own it because it's a military resource. He reveals that he applied the theories of cast jamming to specific magic jamming. Erika asks if he created a new type of magic, but he explains that he discovered the technique using his 2 CAD zone CAD jamming the other while launching a magic sequence. Leo questions why it has to stay confidential since he patented it. Tatsuya explains that the technique isn't perfected yet, and the real issue is that magic can be blocked without Antonite. Erika elaborates that if an easily obtainable technique for nullifying magic spells were to spread, it would shake society to its core. Tatsuya adds he can't publicize it until a method to counter Antonite is found. Miyuki points out he's overthinking it, as not everyone can read their opponent's activation sequence during launch like he can. While patrolling the school grounds, Tatsuya gets a message about a brawl in the gymnasium and rushes to handle it, but gets ambushed by a disguised male student. In class, Leo asks if Tatsuya still has a committee meeting, but Tatsuya declines, saying he's off duty. Leo mentions he's been the focal point of recruitment efforts, with students calling him the mysterious first year who defeated the Magic Club regulars without using magic. Miyuki arrives, and they leave together. Mibu approaches and suggests they hang out so she can thank him properly, but Tatsuya says he'll join her in 15 minutes. Miyuki heads back to the student council room, and Tatsuya bids her goodbye. Miyuki expresses her concerns about people swarming around him for selfish reasons once they discover his strength, but he reassures her he won't be reckless enough to fall for traps. Tatsuya arrives at the cafe, and Mibu thanks him again for his help, but Tatsuya downplays it, saying he just did his job. Mibu points out that the situation was resolved peacefully because he defused the brawl without anyone getting hurt. hurt. Tatsuya asks why she wants to see him, and she explains that she wants him to join the kendo team. Tatsuya declines but asks for her reasons for recruiting him. Mibu explains there's discrimination in school against non-magic users, so they've formed a team for them, aiming to present their argument to school management. Tatsuya mocks her understanding and questions what she plans to do after the argument. In the student council room, Mari asks Tatsuya if he verbally abused Mibu at the cafe because she heard reports that Mibu was blushing around him. Miyuki, filled with anger, questions what Tatsuya did. He calms her down and clarifies that he didn't verbally abuse Mibu. Instead, he learned that the disciplinary committee has earned the students' resentment. Mari points out that Mibu is wrong about them gaining points, as the committee is an honorary position that's not subject to evaluation. Segusa adds that the committee has significant power in the school, making some people perceive them as misusing their authority, but someone has been manipulating that view among the students. Tatsuya asks who it is, but Mari says they'd have stopped the person if they knew. Tatsuya explains that he's actually asking who is behind the manipulation. He uses the Anti-Magic International Political Organization, Blanche, as an example. Tatsuya and Saigusa discuss the hostile organization towards magic, and she says he shouldn't blame her because the school is a national institution where the government is restricting and hiding things. Mari asks what Tatsuya plans to do about Mibu, and he says he's the one waiting for her answer. Tatsuya goes to the counselor's office for a counseling experiment to test the student's psychological abilities. As he's leaving, the counselor asks if Mibu really asked him out, but he tells her it's a baseless rumor. Mibu tells her captain that she doesn't want people to reject her non-magical side since she's a Course 2 student. He replies that all Course 2 students feel the same, but they need Tatsuya's powers no matter what. Later that night, Tatsuya shows Miyuki a clip of Blanche, the political group he mentioned earlier. They chat about their secret activities and how they've been acting like terrorists behind the scenes in their school. They have a long discussion about it, and he concludes by saying that Miyuki has found friendship in Mizuki and Erika, but he won't let anyone ruin the life they've built. Tatsuya finally finishes his practical skills training quicker than usual after his third attempt. Mizuki records a compilation time of 940 milliseconds for him, and mentions that it's surprising he struggles so much with practical skills. He reminds her of his constant complaints about being incompetent, and she says she thought he was just being humble. Tatsuya tells her they wouldn't be classmates if he were average at practical skills. Mizuki admits that he would seem too perfect and hard to approach if he had good practical skills. Mizuki asks if he feels bitter about being labeled a no-skill student despite having special talents, and he doesn't seem bothered. He dismisses her questions, thinking they're not far from the truth about him being unskilled. Mizuki analyzes his skill set, and he praises her keen eyesight. He admits that for basic single-system spells, he can invoke them faster by honing his skills directly, but this method only works for spells that don't require many processes, and since he maxes out at just 5 processes, that's the best he can do. Mizuki thinks 5 processes will be more than enough for combat, but he clarifies that he's not studying magic for combat but to develop energy, needing multiple process spells activated by sequences. That's why he can accept being judged fairly for his lesser processing skills. Mizuki expresses how impressed she is with his choice. She says she'll follow his lead and set her goal to use magic anew, not just to become a magician. She excitedly rambles about achieving her goals until Erika snaps her back to reality. She apologizes for the outburst, while Tatsuya muses that he was forced to become a magician even though he can't use magic, and it feels like a curse. Tatsuya meets with Mibu, who responds to his question. She shares that she wants the school to improve how they're treated, especially regarding classes. Tatsuya asks if she wants changes to the facilities, but she says she doesn't mean that much. He wonders if it's about club activities, but he knows the Kenjutsu and Kendo teams have equal space allocations. Mibu asks if he's not unhappy because of his responses, and he admits that he is, but he's not interested in any changes since his expectations for the educational facility aren't high. Tatsuya says as long as he can read unpublished documents available only at Magic University affiliated schools and gets his diploma from a magic school, he's satisfied. He adds that discrimination comes from the students, not the school, so he doesn't share the same views as her. He stands up and walks away, leaving her feeling helpless. During class, the students listen to an interception from the broadcasting room by the Kendo team. They're looking for a chance to negotiate with the Student Council and the Extracurricular Activities Federation about the ongoing discrimination in the school. Miyuki and Tatsuya arrive at the broadcasting room to find the other council members waiting by the door. Mari reports that they've cut their connection, so they can't broadcast, but they locked themselves inside with the master key. Tatsuya points out it's a crime, and Ichihara adds that's why they should handle it discreetly. Tatsuya asks Chairman Jumanji for his opinion, and he expresses a desire to negotiate, although their illegal act cannot go unpunished. Tatsuya calls Mibu to let her know that the student council wants to negotiate and guarantees her freedom. After the call, he tells them he got her contact because she asked to meet up, and he didn't realize it would come in handy. He instructs them to get ready to take the others into custody. Mari reminds him of his promise to guarantee their freedom, but Tatsuya clarifies that he only assured Mibu. The council arrests Mibu's friends, and she almost hits Tatsuya, accusing him of betraying her. Just then, the chairman steps in and explains that they will listen to their demands, but the others still committed a punishable offense. Segusa arrives and tells them them to release everyone because they can't negotiate with just Mibu since the others are students too. She informs them that the school handed the issue over to the student council. She asks Mibu to join her to discuss the negotiation of their coalition. The next day at school, Miyuki and Tatsuya approach the president to ask about the outcome of the negotiations. Segusa explains that they want equality between the course 1 and 2 students, but they don't have any strategic plans. They want the student council to take action, so she has decided to hold an open forum the next day. Tatsuya worries that it's too soon, and questions who will represent the council. Segusa nominates herself, saying she's good at logical arguments, but if the students win in the debate, she'll have to consider their demands. News of the open forum spreads quickly among the course 2 classes. Tatsuya spots a student pressuring Mizuki to make a decision and intervenes. He recognizes the guy as the one who ambushed him earlier. Tatsuya tells him to back off since Mizuki isn't interested in what he's offering. As he steps away, Mizuki explains that the student is Tsukasa Kinoe, the captain of the kendo team. She mentions that he wants her to join a team for people with her skills, but she has declined, and he keeps pushing. Later that night, Miyuki and Tatsuya visit their master, who shares the history of Tsukasa Kino. He mentions that Tsukasa comes from an ordinary home, and his hypersensitive eyes are inherited from his grandfather. Miyuki asks how he's connected to Blanche, and Mr. Yakumo explains that Tsukasa's older stepbrother is the leader of the Japan Blanche branch, and he placed Kinoe in first high school for a reason. During the open forum, students express their frustrations, and Segusa addresses everyone. She captures their attention with her speech, and promises to work on achieving equality, especially within the student council. They all applaud her, but suddenly an explosion rocks the hall. Members of Blanche infiltrate the school, and the student council steps in to protect the students while Miyuki and Tatsuya go to check out the practice room that exploded. Leo holds off Blanche until Miyuki arrives and defeats them with magic. Tatsuya tells them they're terrorists, which means they can fight back without holding back since they aren't students. He asks if there are more of them, and Mizono, their counselor, shows up to inform them that Blanche's target is the library, meaning attacking them is just a diversion. She mentions that the main force is in, and Mibu is with them too. Tatsuya asks her to explain everything later, and she asks him for a favor. She wants him to give Mibu a chance because she has been struggling mentally, but the job was too much for her to handle as a counselor, so Mibu ended up in their trap. Tatsuya thinks she's being too easy on Mibu, and he angrily tells Miyuki to come with him. Leo calls him a bit callous, but Tatsuya insists he won't be the only one getting hurt due to misplaced sympathy. Tatsuya takes off, and they follow him. On their way, Leo fights off the terrorists with his voice-activated spell. He blocks their attacks with his CAD, and Erika wonders how it hasn't broken. Tatsuya explains he has a fortifying spell on the CAD, so it can't break no matter how hard he hits it. When they arrive at the library, Tatsuya uses his activation sequence detection skills to locate the terrorists. Erika praises him for having skills that will keep them from getting ambushed. She jumps out to attack the terrorists at the entrance, while Miyuki and Tatsuya fly off to the special room where the terrorists are trying to steal the Magic University's secret materials. Mibu, who is with them, questions why they need cutting-edge magic research when their goal is to fight against discrimination. The terrorists gain access, but the door swings open in an instant. Miyuki and Tatsuya enter the room, and Tatsuya blows away their materials, announcing that their plot is now over. One of them tries to shoot at Tatsuya, but Miyuki defends him by freezing the gun. She asserts that no malicious intent toward Tatsuya could escape her notice. Tatsuya tells Mibu the harsh truth. Her dream of creating equality can't happen because the world is how it is, and she's being used. She angrily questions if fighting against discrimination is wrong. She claims he must have been compared to his sister because of her talent, so he must have dealt with unfair humiliation. Miyuki interrupts, disregarding her words, saying she loves and respects Tatsuya, so she bears no contempt for him. Miyuki expresses pity for Mibu because she's made herself feel inferior, and no one despises her as much as she does herself. The terrorists order Mibu to use the ring, which she does, and they cast a cast-jamming spell on the group. Tatsuya defeats the terrorists, but Mibu gets away. Miyuki tries to follow her, but Tatsuya stops her, confident that Erika will handle it. Mibu reaches downstairs and meets Erika. Erika playfully challenges her to a fight and attacks at full speed, surprising Mibu. She mentions having the same skills as Mari, but Erika clarifies her skills are slightly different. Erika successfully breaks Mibu's sword and tells her to keep going because she wants to see her push herself hard to destroy the specter of the woman who holds her back. Mibu takes off her ring, saying she doesn't need it to beat her. They both charge at each other, but Erika defeats her instantly. She introduces herself as the daughter of the Chiba family and adds that Mari is her disciple, so she's better than Mibu in kenjutsu skills. Mibu loses consciousness, and Erika holds her up. The disciplinary committee confronts Tsukasa on his way and accuses him of being behind the attack. The student council gathers around Mibu, who is in bed sick. She shares how Captain Tsukasa has been talking to them about the discrimination in the kendo team. Mibu tells them about when she started feeling inferior and what made her listen to the captain. Not long after she got admitted to the school, she witnessed Mari using her magic sword skills to handle a situation caused by the kenjutsu team, which really impressed her. Mibu asked Mari if she could train her, but Mari turned her down coldly. Surprised, Mari asked what she meant by that. Mibu goes on to recall that Mari told her she was no match for her and should choose a more suitable opponent. Mibu thought Mari said that because she was a Course 2 student. Mari interrupts and insists she didn't dismiss Mibu. She restates what she said. With my skills, I could never be a match for you. It would be better if you trained with someone more worthy. Mari explains that she had pure swordsmanship skills and that Mibu could never beat her without magic, which is why she declined the offer. Mari cries, calling herself an idiot for holding a grudge against Mari for an entire year over a misunderstanding while downplaying her own strength. Tatsuya comforts her, saying she didn't waste her time because she became stronger. Later, Tatsuya asks where Blanche's headquarters is because he plans to take them all down. The council leaders try to convince him not to go since it's dangerous, but he disregards them, stating he will eliminate anyone who disrupts his and Miyuki's daily lives. Miyuki, Erika, and Leo volunteer to join him. Miyuki asks how they will get there, and Tatsuya heads for the door to reveal Mizono, who has been eavesdropping. She provides them with the location, and Jumonji volunteers to go with them, offering to drive. He tells Segusa to stay back and keep control. While Jumonji waits by his car, Kihihara rushes over after overhearing Mibu's story. He begs Jumonji to let him join because he wants to avenge Mibu and express his anger toward those responsible for her situation. Tatsuya assigns everyone's roles for the infiltration. He tells Leo and Erika to secure their escape route and handle anyone trying to run away while he breaks in with Miyuki. They smash through the entrance gate using Leo's voice activation spell combined with the car's full speed. Miyuki and Tatsuya head into the building, and he senses a group of armed men nearby. He urges Miyuki to follow him, and they find the leader of the Japan Blanche organization. He introduces himself as Tsukasa Hajime, and Tatsuya immediately aims his CAD gun at him. He orders them to surrender and drop their weapons, but Hajime just laughs at Tatsuya. He offers Tatsuya a spot in their organization because he's interested in his ability to perform cast jamming without Antonite. Tatsuya sees through his plan and connects the dots. He reveals that he's been using Mibu to get in touch with him and his brother to attack him because he's after his skills. Hajime praises him for being clever, but says that coming to attack him while knowing all this shows he's still a kid. Hajime tosses his glasses up and launches a hypnosis attack on Tatsuya, commanding him to join them. Tatsuya shocks him by talking back and explaining the type of magic he used without getting hypnotized. He questions if the hypnosis was what Hajime used to replace Mibu's memories, and Miyuki angrily labels them as vulgar rogues upon realizing they messed with her memories. Tatsuya continues, saying he escaped hypnosis because he didn't fall for Hajime's distraction trick with the glasses and controlled his CAD with his other hand. Hajime's baffled about how he dodged the attack with counterattack cast jamming. He orders his men to shoot at Tatsuya, but their guns break under his spell. Hajime makes a run for it, and Miyuki urges Tatsuya to chase him while she handles the other men. One of the guys tries to attack Tatsuya, but Miyuki freezes him with magic. Tatsuya tells her not to push too hard since they aren't worth her getting her hands dirty. She angrily freezes the other men for thinking of attacking Tatsuya. The chairman, Yumonji, and Kirihara take out some soldiers as they make their way to the building. Tatsuya approaches Hajime's hiding spot, where his men are surrounding him. Tatsuya enters and wrecks their guns. They try to use cast jamming on him, but he senses their skills and the source. Hajime commands his men to kill Tatsuya, but he fires back using a cast jamming spell. Hajime, shocked, asks how Tatsuya can use magic while under cast jamming and tries to escape, but the door bursts open and Kirihara walks in. Tatsuya tells Kirihara that Hajime is the leader of the Japan Blanche branch and angrily cuts his arm off for tricking Mibu. Private security arrives to clear out the building while Erika complains that they didn't get a chance to fight. Miyuki runs up to Tatsuya and asks if he's okay, which he confirms. She tries to explain how she froze the men out of anger, but he reassures her it's fine. Tatsuya visits Mibu in the infirmary, informing her that she'll be hospitalized for a bit, along with Tsukasa, since they were both victims of hypnosis, to prevent their memories from being swayed again. He assures her that they won't face charges because the school has decided to keep the case under wraps. He asks her to let him know when she's being discharged so he can celebrate with her. Outside the room, he spots a man, Mr. Hayama, who's returning to the Yotsuba family to report on the situation. Hayama asks the head of the family if the situation should stay as is, and the lady replies that as long as Tatsuya is doing his duties as Miyuki's guardian, they'll let them be. Miyuki, Erika, and Tatsuya visit Mibu on her discharge day, and Tatsuya is surprised to see her so happy with Kirihara. Erika mentions that Kirihara visits her every day, which has brought them closer. They approach Mibu and exchange pleasantries. Mibu's father calls Tatsuya aside and thanks him for saving his daughter. Tatsuya humbly responds that he didn't do much. He just pushed her away without thinking, while Chiba and his sister helped her regain her dignity. Mibu's father explains that he knew his daughter couldn't use magic, but he didn't realize she was having a hard time because of it. He shares that Mibu told him Tatsuya's words about not wasting her years saved her, so he insists on thanking him. Tatsuya declines the gratitude again, and Mibu's father mentions that Hazama said Tatsuya is very humble. Tatsuya is surprised they know each other. Mibu's father says they were comrades and assures him he won't tell anyone what he heard about him. Tatsuya returns to his colleagues, and Mibu asks what he discussed with her father. Tatsuya explains that her father is a friend of someone who helped him when he was younger. Erika jokes about their strong connections and wonders why Mibu stopped pursuing Tatsuya for Kirihara. Mibu explains she truly fell in love with Tatsuya, but he was too strong for her to keep up with, while Kirihara was willing to walk at her pace. Tatsuya joins in teasing about Kirihara and leaves with Miyuki. She asks if he's heading back to school, and he confirms that he is. She wonders if it's hard for him to go to school just for her sake, considering his great abilities, but Tatsuya replies it's his only chance to live a normal life, and he enjoys it with her. During Miyuki and Tatsuya's training session with Mr. Yakumo at the Kyuchuji Temple, Tatsuya senses a presence, and Mr. Yakumo asks the person, Haruka, to step out. They find out that it's Ms. Ono. Tatsuya asks what she's looking for, but she notices Miyuki practicing her Mirage Bat training and asks if she's entering the 9 schools competition. Mr. Yakumo replies that she is indeed competing in the Mirage Bat and Ice Pillars tournament. Tatsuya reminds her of his unanswered question. Yakumo explains that she's his student and a private investigator for public safety. Tatsuya praises her impressive concealment spell. She asks them to keep her identity a secret, and Tatsuya urges her to warn them about situations like the Blanche attack. Tatsuki's class wins the football match, but Tatsuya and Leo commend the top player from the next class for being a skilled ball handler. They approach him to introduce themselves. He says he's been meaning to meet Tatsuya and Leo because he respects anyone who can handle Erika. Leo asks if he knows Erika, but she approaches from behind and says they're childhood friends, though he's been avoiding her for the last 6 months. Mikihiko asks about Erika's training outfit, and she tries to explain, but they criticize the outfit until she angrily kicks Leo away. The student council gathers to discuss the upcoming competition between the 9 national magic affiliated schools in the country. One member mentions that they have all their candidates ready, but their engineers are still incomplete. They only have Azusa and Izori from the 2nd year since the 3rd year students are focused on practical skills. Mari points out that Izori is just a theorist and isn't very good at fine-tuning. Segusa asks Ichihara if she can take on the task, but she declines, saying she would hinder the others with her skills. Segusa sighs in frustration while Tatsuya offers to leave, but Azusa stops him and nominates him for the position since he helps Miyuki adjust and calibrate her CAD. Mari and Segusa wonder how they forgot about him, but Tatsuya tries to decline the role, explaining that first-year students have never been part of the technical team. Mari tells him that precedents are meant to be broken. Tatsuya explains that he has a bad reputation among the students, and that fine-tuning a user's CAD requires trust between the user and the engineer, so appointing someone who would face backlash from the athletes is a bad move. Miyuki cuts him off and says she would like him to fine-tune her CAD for the competition, and they all agree on him joining the team, leaving him speechless. Saigusa informs them that there will be prep after class. After classes, Tatsuya brings out his silver horns, and Azusa admires them in amazement. She praises Lord Taurus Silver, the engineer behind the silver horns, and describes her view of him to Tatsuya, who is impressed by her insights. Ichihara works on her computer and receives warning notifications, while Saigusa offers to help Azusa with her assignment. She mentions it's a report on the 3 major puzzles of weight-based magic. She analyzes the report in her own words and proposes an experiment she thinks would work. Segusa counters that if it were that simple, someone would have already tried it. Ichihara mentions that an experiment was conducted in English a year before the last, based on Azusa's idea, but it failed. Azusa asks why, but they have no details. They then ask Tatsuya for his opinion, and he explains it to them in detail. The council leaders announce Tatsuya's nomination as an engineer to the members. Chairman Jumonji notices some people disagreeing, so he encourages Tatsuya to showcase his skills. Kihihara volunteers to be used in the experiment. They instruct Tatsuya to copy Kihihara's CAD settings to a new CAD for competitive use, and make it usable immediately without messing with the activation sequence. Tatsuya gets to work, and some people comment on his manual fine-tuning skills. He successfully completes it, and Kihihara tests the CAD to confirm it works perfectly. Some members still try to convince the council not to add him to the team, but Hattori defends him, explaining that the school's reputation is on the line, so they can't dwell on trivial matters like him being a first-year student. The other council leaders agree with Hattori, and they decide to add him to the team. Later that night, Tatsuya gets a video call from his superior, the Major. The Major tells him that the third eye machine is ready, so they need him to upgrade the system and run some functionality tests. Tatsuya says he'll come by the next day, since that's also his day off to work at the FLT. Before the call ends, the Major asks about the 9-school competition and warns him to be cautious, because they've received intel that members of an international crime syndicate have been seen there multiple times. He mentions that Mr. Mibu's father, provided the information after transferring to the Cabinet Information Management Agency post-military, and he now oversees the the International Crime Unit. The major says he'll reach out when he has more updates. While in his room, Miyuki drops by with a cup of coffee, wearing her Mirage bat costume. He compliments her outfit and shows her the flying spell he finished. She praises his talent, and he encourages her to test the CAD before he takes it to FLT. Miyuki tests the flying spell and confirms that everything is working perfectly. Tatsuya watches her fondly as she flies around with it. Tatsuya visits the FLT Development Center with Miyuki, where the staff warmly welcomes him, referring to him as the young master. He asks for Chief Ushiyama, who steps forward. Tatsuya greets him modestly, but the chief insists they are all his subordinates, so he should stop being so humble or risk setting a bad example. He tells Tatsuya it's an honor for everyone to work under him as Mr. Silver. However, Tatsuya points out that there would be no Taurus Silver without him, Mr. Taurus, the head of the facility. The loop cast system for the silver horns wouldn't have been possible without his technical skills. Chief Ushiyama brushes off the praise and says it's time to get to business. Tatsuya presents the prototype of the flying device, and the chief is amazed. Tatsuya explains the concept, and the chief asks one of the staff how many models they have available. The staff replies they have 10, but the chief commands him to bring all they have, stating they're dealing with a flying spell that could change modern magic history. The staff tests the flying device, confirming it can accelerate both vertically and horizontally. The technical team verifies its features and control system, detecting everything is in perfect working order, so they celebrate the successful development. After the test, the testers return tired, and Tatsuya realizes that the continuous processing of the activation sequence would be too stressful for them. Chief Ushiyama explains that compared to him and Miyuki, an average magician has only a small amount of Pigeons at their disposal. Tatsuya suggests they need to improve the efficiency of the CAD's automatic absorption scheme, and Chief Ushiyama proposes to handle it on his end if he gets the necessary hardware for processing. As they're leaving, Miyuki spots her father and the Yoshiba family's butler, Mr. Aoki. He greets Miyuki alone, but she reminds him that she's not alone, insisting he acknowledge Tatsuya. Mr. Aoki says Tatsuya is just an ordinary bodyguard, claiming he has no reason to respect him as the Yoshiba family's butler. Miyuki reminds him that Tatsuya is her brother. Aoki argues that everyone wants her to be the successor to the family title, putting her on a different level than him. Tatsuya interrupts and accuses him of making serious claims. He questions whether his aunt has named a successor, to which Mr. Aoki declines. Tatsuya interprets this as Mr. Place, Artuek, the Tanzers. Aoki trying to plant doubts in the mind of a succession candidate, suggesting he's being disruptive. The two continue exchanging words until Mr. Aoki calls Tatsuya a heartless bogus magician. Tatsuya counters that the heartless bogus magician label was created by his mother, the elder sister of the current head of the Yotsuba family and the former head, so calling him bogus insults them. Shiba tells him to stop speaking ill of his mother, even if his hatred for her is justified. Tatsuya leaves, stating he doesn't hate his mother because he lacks a heart for hatred. While in class, Tatsuya's classmates congratulate him on being elected as an engineer. At the launch ceremony, Segusa officially announces the athletes and engineers. When Tatsuya's name is called, Miyuki hands him the competition tag as his classmates cheer for him. Tatsuya introduces his engineering skills to the female athletes, but some show no interest in his help and begin to argue among themselves. He sighs and suggests they start the meeting. During the training session, Mizuki sneaks a look at the athletes, but her attention shifts when she sees a magic explosion from one of the school buildings. She walks down the hallway and peeks into the pharmaceutical experiment room to find Mikihiko practicing magic. Mikihiko notices her presence, and the water spirits turn toward Mizuki, but Tatsuya intervenes and stops it. He calms Mikihiko, saying Mizuki disrupted the spellcaster's focus. Mikihiko apologizes for his inexperience and thanks Tatsuya for saving her. Tatsuya assesses Mikihiko's magic and calls it ancient magic. Mikihiko admits he was practicing his summoning magic with a water spirit. Tatsuya asks Mizuki what she saw, and she describes orbs of light in different shades of blue. Mikihiko gazes at her eyes in amazement, but Tatsuya interrupts them, prompting Mikihiko to apologize. He thinks Mizuki has crystal eyes and wants to see them up close. Mikihiko explains the concept of crystal eyes to Tatsuya, concluding that Mizuki has them. Tatsuya remarks that she's the kind of person who would make someone like him sell their soul to get close. Mikihiko agrees, saying that a year ago, he would have been captivated and would fight hard to keep her by his side, but he no longer feels that way. He adds that doesn't mean he's going to share his discovery with other spellcasters, and Tatsuya assures him he'll keep it to himself. The students are ready to head to the competition. Segusa arrives late to the bus, and Mari scolds her while Tatsuya understands she's dealing with a family emergency. On the bus, Saigusa complains about Tatsuya's reaction and what he thinks of her. She wanted him to sit beside her, but Ichihara interrupts, saying it was better for him since she mentioned it to avoid falling victim to her enchanting eyes. Hattori shows up and seems infatuated with Segusa. He offers her a blanket, and Ichihara defends him. Mitsui offers Miyuki some tea, but she declines, saying she doesn't deserve it since she isn't suffering in the heat like her brother. She sounds sad and wonders why her brother has to endure so much. Shizuku comforts her, explaining that her brother is a good guy who sacrificed himself for a role no one else wants. Miyuki instantly feels better with Shizuku's words. Suddenly, an accident happens, and an almost exploding car speeds towards their bus. They all panic and try to stop it with various spells. Mari tells them to cancel their spells and asks Chairman Jumoji if he can stop the car. He explains that blocking it is not the only problem. The Sion storm is too strong, so he can't put out the fire at the same time. Miyuki offers to put out the fire while he stops the car. They both get to work, and the car halts immediately. Mari wonders what kind of spell this is. Miyuki identifies it as Gram Dispersion, not surprising since it's Tatsuya. Saigusa thanks Jumoji and Miyuki for their help, but Miyuki mentions she couldn't have used the magic sequence without the declaration spell Ichihara cast to stop the bus. Mari scolds the other students for casting spells one after another during the chaos, saying that disorderly spells will cancel each other out and be useless. Saigusa encourages everyone to remain calm in a crisis. While in thought, Mari wonders who canceled the magic sequences. They reach the 9-school competition lodgings, and Kirihara notices Hattori's expression. He asks what's wrong, and Hattori explains that his confidence was shaken earlier when he did nothing, while Miyuki, younger than him, handled the situation. He feels he'd lose to her in a test of power, but reassures himself that superiority among magicians isn't just about magic strength. Kirihara assures him that there's something special about the two siblings and bets that Tatsuya has killed before. Hattori asks if that means Tatsuya has fought in actual combat, and Kirihara agrees. He recalls the Blanche incident, stating Tatsuya was impressive because his thirst for blood was intense, confirming that Miyuki isn't just an ordinary girl. Tatsuya tells Miyuki that the incident wasn't an accident, but a deliberate attack since he found traces of magic. He explains it was small-scale magic, launched instantly at minimum output levels. The magic consisted of 3 spells, meant to leave no detectable cyan remnant, launched by the driver, indicating it was a suicide attack. Miyuki angrily calls the driver a coward, and Tatsuya tells her criminals and terrorists are cowards, because those who give the orders rarely risk their lives. They walk into the lodge and are surprised to see Erika. Tatsuya greets her and leaves while Miyuki questions why she's there 2 days before the competition, becoming even more surprised when she sees Mizuki in a revealing dress. Miyuki tells Mizuki to take it off and questions how they got access to the military hotel. Erika says she used her connections as a member of the Chiba family. Miyuki asks again why they arrived early, and Erika says they plan to attend the banquet. Miyuki informs them it's for insiders, but Erika insists they're also insiders because she has it handled. At the banquet, Erika serves Tatsuya drinks as a waitress, and he realizes that's her idea of being an insider. Miyuki arrives and compliments her outfit. They talk about it until Erika rushes off to call Mikihiko. Mitsui and Shizuku approach them. Tatsuya comments that they're always together, and Shizuku replies it's because they're friends. Miyuki asks about the others, and Shizuku shows her where they are, saying they want to come over, but can't with Tatsuya nearby. Tatsuya encourages her to go with them and connect with her classmates, emphasizing that teamwork is important. Erika arrives with Mikihiko and asks about Miyuki. Tatsuya tells her that Miyuki is with her classmates, and that he'll introduce them later. Mikihiko says it's okay because he feels awkward meeting someone in uniform. Erika and Mikihiko bicker before Mikihiko leaves to grab the plates that Erika pointed out. Tatsuya tells Erika to take it easy on him, but she explains that both she and Mikihiko are there because their parents made them. She says it isn't kindness. She just feels sorry for him since they're in the same situation. Tatsuya says he won't pry since there's nothing he can do. Erika thanks Tatsuya for being cold because it lets her express herself without feeling pathetic, since he shows no sympathy. She thanks him again and heads off. Miyuki looks at Tatsuya and tells him he's oblivious to people's goodwill because he doesn't notice her staring. Some students from another school notice her, and their leader asks who she is, which another student answers. The banquet starts, and the host announces that the Magic Association chairman, Mr. Retsu Kudo, will say a few words. Mr. Retsu shows up and plays a prank on the students with a magic trick, which Tatsuya immediately detects. Mr. Retsu eventually steps up and apologizes for his prank. He mentions that only 5 students caught the trick, which means only those 5 would have attacked him if he were a real terrorist. He gives a short speech encouraging the students to improve their magic skills, expressing excitement to see their creativity. In their room, Mitsui tells her roommates that she feels nervous, but Miyuki calms her down, saying it's too early for that. She asks Shizuku about the next day's events. Shizuku checks them out, and they decide which ones to attend. There's a knock at the door, and when Mitsui opens it, she finds Amy and a couple of other female athletes. Amy urges them to join them at the hot spring. Meanwhile, Mikihiko practices his summoning magic but senses some thieves nearby. He considers reporting it to security since he's not as strong as he used to be, but then decides to act like Tatsuya, who overpowered Course 1 students. He chases the thieves, who try to shoot at him, but someone saves him. It turns out to be Tatsuya. The episode recaps how Tatsuya arrived just in time to save Mikihiko from the thieves' attack. Tatsuya checks their pulses and confirms they're still alive. He praises Mikihiko for taking out his targets with a single shot from a blind spot without seriously injuring them. Mikihiko says he'd have been shot if Tatsuya hadn't stepped in, but Tatsuya calls him an idiot for not recognizing his own success in capturing the intruders with his magic. Tatsuya questions what Mikihiko sees for himself, stating he can beat anyone, no matter how skilled, without help from anyone. Tatsuya wonders why Mikihiko would undermine himself to the point of not believing in himself, and Mikihiko insists Tatsuya doesn't understand. Tatsuya encourages encourages him and explains that the issue lies with Mikihiko's spells, not his talent. Mikihiko, frustrated, asks how Tatsuya can say his legendary family spell is faulty when he's only seen him practice a few times. Tatsuya clarifies that he can read activation sequences and analyze magic sequences. Mikihiko struggles to believe this, and Tatsuya admits he can't force him. Tatsuya tells him to call security while he keeps watch over the intruders. As Mikihiko heads out, the Major arrives and notices Tatsuya's feelings for Mikihiko. The Major points out that it's unusual for someone indifferent to others, and wonders if Mikihiko resonates with Tatsuya because he shares similar struggles. Tatsuya tells him he's moved past those struggles, to which the Major notes that his words show he remembers what that feels like. The competition kicks off, and the commentator announces that the official matches will last 5 days, while the rookie competition will go for 10 days. Tatsuya asks Mitsui if she's ready for the competition, and she affirms, mentioning she's been working on her physique. Miyuki chimes in that she now has muscles, leaving Mitsui embarrassed, stating she doesn't want to become a macho woman. Tatsuya laughs at her comment, making her feel shy, but Shizuku says Tatsuya is laughing because of the way she phrased it. Mitsui expresses feeling left out since Tatsuya will be with them during their competition. Tatsuya reassures her he trained with her and will help fine-tune her for the Mirage board match, but Mitsui remains unimpressed. The waterboard competition starts, with Mari representing the first high schools. She stands confidently on her board as the race begins. Tatsuya analyzes her magic usage and discerns she's combining about 3 spells, making it hard for her opponents to compete. Tatsuya calls her a strategist, while Erika remarks that she's not a nice person. The commentator declares that the winner is obvious based on the distance between the athletes. Tatsuya visits Major Kazama's office, where he spots other officials. They urge him to sit, but he insists on standing. One of the officials explains he wasn't invited as their special officer and strategic class magician, but as a friend, worried they'd be lost if he continued standing. Tatsuya agrees to sit with them. Major Hazama informs him that the intruders from the previous night belong to the No-Head Dragons, the international crime syndicate he mentioned. Tatsuya asks if they're targeting the 9 schools competition, but the Major is unsure. The lady serving tea asks how Tatsuya was present during the attack. He explains he sensed their presence while walking after fine-tuning the CAD for the matches. Major Hazama wonders if Tatsuya's teammates know about his silver identity, but Tatsuya says he's kept that conversation under wraps since it's confidential. They discuss the possibility of him joining the competition, but the Major says it's a bad idea because casting top-secret military-grade magic in a public tournament isn't wise. Tatsuya assures him it's rare for an engineer like him to participate in a tournament. Tatsuya returns to the competition arena, where the next match is happening in the speed shooting qualifiers venue. He comments on how crowded the arena is, and Miyuki mentions it's because Segusa is competing. He asks about Mikihiko, and Erika tells him he's resting in the lodge because he feels sick. The competition starts, and Segusa shoots flawlessly, winning her opponent with a perfect score, while her school supporters cheer for her. Later that night, the ladies celebrate their victories in the matches. Segusa mentions that Hattori managed to win his match despite having issues with his CAD. She realizes that the CAD needs proper calibration, and they wonder who can help him since his engineers will be busy the next day. She suggests asking Tatsuya, since he's free the next day and the day after, and urges Miyuki to pass the message to him. Miyuki tells Tatsuya about the request. He agrees to help but shares his concerns about her walking back to the hotel alone at night. He offers to walk her back, leaving the CAD he's programming behind because she's more important to him. She says she feels the same way. In the next match, Segusa sees Tatsuya fine-tuning her CAD. She tells him she's counting on him and asks for his help with her stretching exercise. She says she feels like his younger brother because he doesn't seem flustered around her. Tatsuya says he wants to check out other athletes, but Izumi, the second engineer, shows up and tells him she'll take care of them so he can watch Segusa's match. As expected, Segusa wins again. Some athletes, including Tatsuya, gather to watch Kanan's performance, confirming that the females are in the lead. While returning to their tent, Ichihara informs him that the results of the men's crowd ball weren't what they expected, so they're calculating projections on how to win the overall title. Tatsuya agrees, saying they need to win 4 out of the remaining 6 matches to take the overall title. Later that night, Miyuki visits Tatsuya's room with their friends. Erika notices the weaponized integrated CAD on his table. Miyuki asks if that was the toy he was playing with when she visited before, and he confirms it. He shows it to Leo and suggests he gives it a try. Leo and Tatsuya test the new weapon at the combat training ground behind the lodge. Leo holds the blade, slicing through the air with a section floating up. Tatsuya confirms the test, and Leo praises him for doing a great job since the fortifying magic works even when physically disconnected. Tatsuya explains the concept and tells Leo he will be doing a live test. He brings out some pellets for Leo. Leo performs the test and swings the sword smoothly. The semi-final battle paddleboard competition kicks off, with Mari representing the first high school as usual. While sliding, she notices her opponent speeding uncontrollably. Mari tries to slow her down, but her board sinks, and they both crash to the floor. Mari wakes up in the hospital with Segusa sitting by her side. Segusa reassures her that she's okay mentally, but informs her she won't be able to participate in the Mirage Bat competition because she broke her ribs and needs a week for them to heal. Mari asks how the race went, and Segusa explains that 3rd and 9th high schools will compete in the finals, while 7th high got disqualified for reckless fighting. Segusa adds that the 7th high candidate didn't get hurt badly, thanks to Mari's help. Mari looks unimpressed because she got injured, but Segusa notes that, according to Tatsuya, the candidate would have been seriously hurt without Mari's assistance. Mari wonders why Tatsuya's name keeps coming up. Segusa explains that he was the one who saved her, noticed her fractured ribs, instructed the paramedics, and carried her to the hospital. Mari blushes in embarrassment, realizing she should thank him later. Segusa asks if a third party using magic hindered her because they believe the reason she lost her balance while trying to save her opponent was due to an illegal spell cast by someone that disrupted the water's surface. Mari remembers feeling an unnatural swaying before her board sank and confirms it. Segusa mentions that Tatsuya plans to borrow the videos from the tournament staff to analyze the water surface fluctuations. Tatsuya and his friends watch the videos, and Kei suspects the attack came from an operative hiding underwater. He mentions that, according to Tatsuya's analysis, the force affecting the water's surface originated from the water itself. Mizuki and Mikihiko arrive, and Tatsuya introduces them, explaining that he called them to help figure out the mystery of the underwater operative. Tatsuya details his analysis and concludes that it's not easy to cast spells that make the waterways collapse from outside without detection, and it's unlikely it was delayed magic. He asserts that the only plausible explanation is that the spell was cast by someone hiding underwater. He reiterates that it's a ridiculous idea because it's impossible to completely hide oneself using either modern or ancient magic, leading to the conclusion that something other than a human was lurking in the water. Tatsuya asks Mikihiko if it's possible to cast a delayed spell that activates after a few hours using spirit magic, especially under conditions to make the water cave in. Mikihiko confirms that it's doable. They play a clip showing the 7th high candidate accelerating and realize that the acceleration happened because someone messed with her CAD. Kei wonders who could have tampered with it, and Tatsuya suspects that operatives among the tournament committee members might be the ones since they can access the CADs when they're taken from the school's protection. The first High Student Council meets to discuss their need to win the last 2 official battles to secure overall victory. Saigusa mentions they need to be cautious about interference from unknown sources, and Saigusa asks Ichihara for a breakdown. Ichihara reports that they're on track with their projections, but they must win the official Mirage Bat and Monolith Code matches to avoid falling behind 3rd high. Saigusa tells Miyuki that she'll compete in the official Mirage Bat instead of Mari. Miyuki protests, pointing out that some upper-class students are only participating in 1 match, but Mari states they aren't qualified enough. Tatsuya encourages her to take on the task since they believe in her abilities and promises to optimize her CAD as best as he can. Tatsuya checks with Mitsui to see if she's ready for her race, and she confirms, though nervously. Shizuku arrives and takes Tatsuya's newly developed CAD. He urges her to check it thoroughly, and she assures him she feels good about it. She asks if he doesn't want her family to hire him, and Tatsuya says they'll talk about it once he gets his license. At the shooting venue, Mari expresses that it's their first time seeing Tatsuya's engineering skills in action. Ichihara notes that he's received plenty of praise from the athletes, and more students are requesting him to fine-tune their CADs. Segusa worries about potential impacts on the other matches, but Ichihara reassures her that it's under control. As the shooting begins, Shizuku performs perfectly, and they analyze her skills. She finishes with a perfect score, and they commend Tatsuya's engineering skills. Tatsuya comments on the CAD, expressing surprise that they went for the blind spots, but the settings weren't malicious, just as he expected. Shizuku tells him he worries too much since it's still just the preliminaries. Tatsuya mentions she will fight in match mode during the quarterfinals, so he has optimized her sword, and she can check it out. Ichihara reviews the match results and notes that the ladies are winning, while 2 boys in the boys' races didn't make the cut. She suggests they should put more effort into training engineers in their school. Tatsuya finishes setting up Shizuku's CAD and reassures her that she'll win. Shizuku confidently replies that she will, because Tatsuya has set everything up perfectly for her. Shizuku wins the newcomers' speed shooting quarterfinals with a perfect score, and her school members cheer with joy. Segusa greets her happily and shares how impressed she is. Tatsuya insists the girls won through their own hard work, and Saigusa praises them too. Mari adds that Tatsuya's efforts in the matches shouldn't be overlooked. Finally, Tatsuya acknowledges the praise but says thank you with a lack of enthusiasm. Mari wonders why he sounds that way. He explains that the achievement of having all their players on the podium is largely due to his engineering skills, which they all know to be true. The athletes share their thoughts, with Amy saying she felt like her magic had suddenly improved. Ichihara mentions that the university has approached them about officially adopting Shizuku's magic into the Magic University Index. Tatsuya tells them to list Shizuku as the developer's name. Shizuku tries to argue, but he explains that the first person to use a new type of magic is credited as the developer, and he also wants wants to avoid the embarrassment of being unable to use magic. Segusa interrupts their discussion and tells Tatsuya she's counting on him for the next matches. The athletes of 3rd High School gather to discuss 1st High's strategy. Their leader, Masaki, notes that the girls aren't winning because of their magic skills, since some of them don't seem to have exceptional abilities. He says their losses aren't due to a lack of talent, so there must be another reason. George theorizes they have a great engineer. He speculates that the engineer behind the girls' speed shooting has incredible skills. Masaki asks George about the weapon Shizuku used, and George confirms it's a generalized weapon. The other students can't believe a generalized weapon could exist in rifle form, but Masaki assures them it does. George explains it's a cutting-edge technology revealed the previous summer, but the prototype was too inaccurate for immediate use. Masaki mentions he saw the actual device during the match, concluding the engineer's skills are beyond high school level. He adds that any matches he competes in will be a tough challenge for them. Tatsuya tells Azusa and Mitsui he'll help them with her battle board since he has a bit more free time. Mitsui quickly asks him to adjust her CAD, but he declines, stating it's rude to Azusa. Mitsui apologizes, and Azusa brushes it off. Tatsuya agrees to adjust her strategy for the preliminaries because of her regret. The athletes all gather by the waterway, and Azusa questions why Mitsui has so many optical activation sequences prepared. Tatsuya explains that using magic to interfere with other contestants isn't allowed, but they can still disrupt them by affecting the water's surface. He gives each of them dark optical shades to wear. The race begins, and Mitsui casts an optical spell on the water's surface, causing the others to lose their balance while she sails through easily to win. She joyfully runs to Tatsuya, thanking him with tears in her eyes, saying she's never won a game or tournament before, but he made it happen. The student council leaders get together to talk about how the competition is going. Mari confirms that only Morisaki ended up as the runner-up in the men's speed shooting, while the other 2 guys were eliminated. Jumonji mentions that the boys could use a morale boost and that they need to shake off their slump. A group of men supporting 3rd High sit at a round table, discussing that they need to make a move on 1st High to keep them from winning. One of them notes that they drew a big crowd this time, which will seriously impact their business. He warns that their boss might take matters into his own hands depending on how badly they lose. Tatsuya opens his door to find Miyuki inside. He encourages her to go back to her room, explaining that lack of sleep can hurt her focus, and she's not invincible when it comes to losing. Miyuki pleads for just a little of his time. She tells him Shizuku informed her that he turned down the chance to add his name to the index. She asks if he did it because of their aunt, and he confirms it. He explains that the university has significant power, so it's possible that his identity as Silver, which the Yotsuba family has kept under wraps, could be revealed. He adds that he doesn't have enough resources yet to defeat their aunt, the Queen of the Night, or the Yotsuba family, so his best option is to follow their rules. Miyuki tears up and hugs him, saying she will always be by his side. Shizuku is dressed in a traditional outfit for her Ice Pillars breaking match. Tatsuya worries if that's a good choice and whether the dress will hinder her, but she reassures him that she feels comfortable. She remarks that it's less flashy than what Kanon and Amy are wearing. The competition kicks off, and Shizuku's opponent arrives in costume. The students cheer them on, and Mitsui asks if Miyuki isn't going to meet Tatsuya. Miyuki explains that she wants to check out Shizuku's hands since they'll be competing. Shortly after, Shizuku showcases her skills and wins the match, making her team ecstatic. Mitsui gazes at Tatsuya adorably while he fine-tunes the CAD's magic sequence. She comments that it's just as beautiful as exam day. Miyuki shows up and interrupts her thoughts. Soon after, the upper-class women from the student council arrive to cheer on Miyuki. Tatsuya tells her not to be nervous because of their presence, and she agrees, saying he's always by her side. As the match begins, Miyuki unleashes inferno magic to shatter all the ice pillars, leaving her opponent defenseless. The upper-class women express their amazement at Miyuki's command of magic. Later, the female athletes gather around Tatsuya to chat about Miyuki's match and thank him for calibrating their CADs. Morisaki overhears their conversation, furious, and storms out of the room. His fellow athletes chase after him, and he tells them they'll win the Monolith Code game the next day. He tells Tatsuya to wait, saying he'll show him that blossoms are better than weeds. The first-year students from the 3rd High School introduce themselves to Tatsuya as Masako and Shinkuro. Tatsuya, recognizing their titles, questions what the Crimson Prince and Cardinal George want with him before their match. George admits he hasn't heard Tatsuya's name before, but promises to remember it. He says Tatsuya is probably the most prodigious engineer in the history of the 9-school competition, and they came to see what he looks like. George mentions they are competing in the Monolith Code game, but Tatsuya clarifies he isn't in charge of the event. George expresses a desire to compete against Tatsuya's players one day, although they believe they will win regardless. Meanwhile, Mitsui competes in another waterboard game. Erika comments on the contestants' choice to wear dark shades to avoid being affected by Mitsui's optical activation sequence again. Mikihiko points out that they are only playing into Tatsuya's hands because he won't use a simple strategy twice. The race starts, and the girls take off faster than Mitsui, but she suddenly speeds ahead, creating a significant gap. Erika says it's like a shadow dropped onto the course. but Mikihiko explains that the dark goggles make Mitsui's opponents mistakenly think the water routes end at the border of light and dark, so they hesitate to enter the darkness. Mitsui wins the race, smiling happily. Segusa praises the Ice Pillar Break athletes for their impressive performance. She notes that the tournament allowed them to share the first position rather than compete. Aimi decides to withdraw, while Shizuku wants to compete against Miyuki, not wanting to miss the chance. Segusa asks for Miyuki's choice, and she agrees to take on the challenge because it's what she wants. The match begins. Shizuku fights hard against Miyuki's Inferno magic, unleashing another CAD to fire high-level spells at the pillars. Miyuki commends Shizuku for mastering the dual CAD technique but calls her naive. Miyuki then casts a Niflheim spell with her CAD, described by Mari as wide-range freezing magic, capable of creating liquid nitrogen. Miyuki wins the match, leaving Shizuku in shock. Shizuku sits alone in her room, feeling sad when Mitsui comes to comfort her. Shizuku cries over her loss, knowing she didn't stand a chance, despite realizing she was overwhelmed by Miyuki's skills. Tatsuya lies on his bed, recalling the history of the Crimson Prince and Cardinal George. He explains that Masaki earned his title as Ichijo's Crimson Prince after volunteering as a soldier at just 18, using rupture magic to decimate enemy forces. He identifies George as the genius magician who discovered the cardinal codes that were thought to exist only in theory. Tatsuya sees it as a nearly criminal coincidence that both decided to enroll in the same school and grade. He empathizes with Morisaki and the others who will compete against them, noting their only saving grace is that rupture is a lethal rank A spell prohibited during the tournament. Upon arriving at the school's tent, Tatsuya learns about the boys' team's bad news. Miyuki shares that they had an accident, while Shizuku insists it was a deliberate overattack, clearly violating the rules. Miyuki urges her not to jump to conclusions, reminding her there is no proof. Tatsuya asks about Morisaki and the team's health, and Segusa explains they are in critical condition due to a battering ram attack in an abandoned building where they got trapped under the debris. Tatsuya listens carefully and finally shares his thoughts, stating that to him, it's a clear violation of the rules. He assesses the situation and concludes that the tournament staff will be in a panic because they started the event in a rundown building. He suspects they will want to cancel the Rookie Monolith Code event. Segusa confirms that they are seeking cancellation but mentions that the prelims and 4th High are proceeding with the matches without them, so they may have to forfeit their second preliminary match. Tatsuya agrees that they have no choice but to forfeit. Segusa tells him that Jumonji is negotiating with them and wants to talk to Tatsuya privately. She shares that since Mari's incident, she views the attack as sabotage and wonders if the schools are seeking revenge, but Tatsuya tells her it's beyond that. He shares limited information he has about the crime syndicate targeting the competition and the 3 robbers who attacked them at the event's start. The men opposing 1st High confirm that their tactics will lead to 1st High's disqualification from the Monolith Code match, which will affect their scores. Tatsuya encourages Mitsui and another athlete competing in the Mirage Bat match. During the match, the girls perform well, while some boys speculate on how Tatsuya can make such a tiny activation sequence work. They remark that anyone might think he's Taurus Silver himself. Azusa hears their comments and connects the dots with Tatsuya's engineering skills, exclaiming when she realizes he is the real Taurus Silver, just as the girls win the game. Tatsuya is called by the student council. Segusa thanks him for his efforts and explains that, given their current situation, they need to secure 1st place in the Monolith Code rookie competition. She mentions that Masaki and Shinkuro are competing, and with their teamwork, they shouldn't face many challenges. She asks Tatsuya to represent them in the Monolith Code competition. Tatsuya questions why she chose him, and Segusa says she believes he's capable. Tatsuya declines for various valid reasons, but Jumonji insists he accept the responsibility. Reluctantly, Tatsuya agrees, and Jumonji asks him to select his teammates. Tatsuya picks Ryo and Mikihiko, which makes Hattori shout in frustration. Tatsuya explains that he chose them because he has a good rapport with them, which is essential for teamwork, has seen them practice, and they have excellent skills. Tatsuya tells Mikihiko and Ryo about the competition, and they agree to participate. Tatsuya outlines the strategy for the event, saying Ryo will take on the defensive role, meaning he needs to protect his monolith from enemy attacks. Tatsuya checks if Ryo knows what he needs to do to win a monolith. Ryo confirms that he has to either knock the other team out or enter the hidden code in the monolith into the terminal. Tatsuya clarifies the concept for him, and Ryo acknowledges his defensive responsibilities. Ryo asks how they'll fend off enemies since they can't use physical attacks. Tatsuya hands him the CAD device Ryo had previously tested, mentioning that using a spell to launch a mass attack at the enemy wouldn't count as a violation. Tatsuya assigns Mikihiko the task of using guerrilla tactics, meaning he has to support both offense and defense. Mikihiko recalls Tatsuya's comments about how convoluted his Yoshida family spells are, which is why he couldn't use his magic as he wanted. He admits that his spell was camouflaged to hide its true nature. Tatsuya explains that his spells would have been effective with longer incantations, but now, with modern magic being sped up by CADs, they are no longer effective. Mikihiko understands that modern magic beats ancient magic, but Tatsuya corrects him, saying that for extrasensory surprise attacks, modern magic can't compare to ancient magic. Tatsuya adds that he recommended Mikihiko because his ancient ambushing magic would be a strong asset for them. Mikihiko stands up and accepts the role. The Monolith code game kicks off, and Tatsuya showcases his skills alongside his teammates. Masaki and Shinkuro observe them from a screen to analyze their moves. Tatsuya casts the Gram Demolition spell on one of the opponents, surprising George. Segusa admits she had her suspicions about Tatsuya being able to use Gram Demolition. Mari recalls their earlier incident and asks if Segusa comprehends what just occurred. Segusa explains it as spell dismantling, detailing the features of the spell, and concludes that it has no significant flaws beyond its short range. She adds that it's the most powerful of the counter magic spells available, but it's not something just anyone can wield. Tatsuya continues playing, and they manage to open the monolith, but then they stop and disperse. Shinzuku questions their decision to scatter, and Miyuki explains that entering a 512 character code won't be easy, even for her brother, while they're under enemy fire. Tatsuya casts another spell on one of their opponents, and George identifies it as a non-systematic resonance type. Masaki declares it's game over for their opponents, and the horn sounds to announce their victory, leading his team to celebrate. Masaki asks George how he plans to take down Tatsuya. George shares that he can't shake the feeling that Tatsuya is battle-tested based on how he carries himself. He suggests they should be more cautious of Tatsuya's combat abilities than his magic skills. Masaki inquires about George's own magic skills, and George admits they are weak, so the only thing to watch out for is Tatsuya's spell dismantling and traps. George concludes that if Masaki can engage Tatsuya in a direct fight on an open field, their victory is guaranteed. The first high school faces off against the second high school in the second monolith match, and Tatsuya's team from first high school wins. Major Hazama and a lady watch the competition from their office. Major Kazama mentions that Tatsuya is cutting too many corners by not using the flashcast or elemental sight. The assistant suggests he must have his reasons, but he'll definitely have to use the flashcast in the finals against the Crimson Prince and Cardinal George, since he can't win with a low-spec CAD. Miyuki and Tatsuya walk down the hallway. Miyuki urges Tatsuya to rest before their next game, but he insists on watching the third high school match. On their way, they see Erika arguing with her brother about coming to see Mari instead of training. She walks away and spots Miyuki and Tatsuya. Tatsuya watches the match closely and notices the Crimson Prince using interference magic that he thought was only for the Jumonji clan. The third school wins the match. Segusa asks Jumonji about it, and he suspects the prince used it as bait for Tatsuya. Tatsuya realizes Masaki intends to draw him into a direct confrontation by deliberately exposing himself. This puts them in a tricky situation because they need to take the bait to win. He praises Cardinal George for a clever strategy. Tatsuya tells his team they've got them, and they all agree. He analyzes George's skill set as the invisible bullet. Tatsuya reminds them that George isn't the only opponent they have to worry about, so before stressing over Masaki and George, they should focus on their match with 9th High School. The Monolith Code starts for 1st and 9th High Schools. Tatsuya's team wins again, and Erika proudly notes that Mikihiko hasn't changed at all. Erika stands alone at the top of the building. Mikihiko approaches her and says he wants to see Mount Fuji before the finals. After a moment of silence, Erika asks if he feels the energy he came to soak up. She tells him he can now use magic like he used to before the accident. She encourages him to keep it up since he has nothing to fear from 3rd High. Ono delivers a box to Tatsuya from his master, complaining that she's not an errand girl but a counselor. Tatsuya asks her to gather information on the No-Head Dragon's base in exchange for a tax-free windfall. She asks how he knows about it, and he explains he just wants to find out who the enemy is that threatens him. She promises to give him the information in 2 days. Masaki and George read the announcements. They confirm the match will take place on the open plain stage. They're excited that their plans will come out on top. Tatsuya shows the robes he received from his master to Leo and Mikihiko. He explains that he has inscribed magic circles on them, which work like engraving magic with an ancient magic medium. He mentions that the robes enhance the wearer's magical potency. Leo asks what they're for, and Tatsuya says George's invisible bullet needs a visual confirmation of its target, so the robes will block the spells. He assures them that the committee has checked their devices, so they're in the clear. Tatsuya gets a briefing from Seigusa about their opponent's strengths. Hattori asks if Tatsuya has a strategy, and Tatsuya explains he plans to force Masaki into close combat since he is overly obsessed with him. Kihihara reminds him that brawls aren't allowed, and Tatsuya mentions there's a way to keep his hands clean. Tatsuya trains in the morning, admitting he's not confident about defeating just Masaki given his current limitations. He arrives and offers a towel to a girl who acknowledges Masaki's strength and notes he has to fight with his powers limited. She adds that, as someone who helped impose those limits, she can't really say much, but she believes nobody can beat him. She storms off, leaving Tatsuya wondering what to do next. The competition kicks off, and Erika teases Leo and Mikihiko about their robes. Mikihiko asks why he doesn't have to wear one, and Tatsuya Tatsuya explains he's a vanguard, so he can't run fast in such uncomfortable attire. Mizuki takes off her glasses and tells Erika she sees spirits swirling around Mikihiko. Masaki and George notice the robes and wonder what they're for. Masaki suspects it might be a countermeasure against George's invisible bullet since he knows about it. George confirms that the spell has no penetrating power, but can't be blocked by just clothing. He doubts he'll face them with such a weak strategy. George says he didn't expect Tatsuya to have another trick, but Masaki dismisses his overthinking. Chairman Mr. Kudo sits to watch the match, noting he's found an interesting young talent. The match starts with Masaki launching spells at Tatsuya, but Tatsuya blocks them as they close in. The other competitors praise Tatsuya's skills, wondering if he's really a Course 2 student. George observes that Tatsuya is using a different type of magic and questions if he really changed the structure of his sequence in just 2 hours. He decides to head to the battlefield. Tatsuya narrowly dodges one of Masaki's attacks, but determines he has no choice but to use his elemental sight magic. The Major, observing Tatsuya's moves, realizes he can't hold back any longer because of the spell he used. A lady suggests an ultimate case could be made that he used Sixth Sense magic, not elemental sight. Major Kazama claims he can fool novices, but not the keen eyes of Chairman Mr. Kudo. George charges at Ryo and Mikihiko, but they block his invisible bullet with their robes, and he realizes he can't use his invisible bullets. He tries attacking again but sees an illusion. George barely avoids a hit from Ryo, thanks to Masaki's defense. Suddenly, Masaki sees Tatsuya rushing at him and releases his magic without adjusting. Masaki worries he might end up killing him at this rate. Tatsuya tries to deflect the attacks but gets hit hard. Masaki stares at him in shock, questioning what he just did since the force he used broke the rules. Tatsuya activates the self-restoration sequence on himself, finishes loading it, and heals his injuries. He snaps his fingers beside Masaki's ears, causing the whole field to vibrate, knocking Masaki down unconscious. Seigusa is confused about what she just witnessed, and Jumonji explains that Tatsuya must have snapped his ears to amplify the sound. Ichihara agrees, suggesting that Tatsuya likely incapacitated Masaki by damaging his ears and rupturing his eardrums with the high decibel sound wave. Seigusa clarifies that's not what she's referring to. She's concerned about Tatsuya being seriously hurt by Masaki's illegal excessive attack and wonders how he could fight again. Jumonji reassures her and explains that he's heard about Tatsuya's ancient martial arts and his skill in enhancing the body. He points out that magic spells aren't the only miracles, so she should set that aside since the match isn't over. Seigusa acknowledges he's right and silently apologizes to Tatsuya. Major Hazama praises Tatsuya's self-restoration speed because it surpasses human cognitive capabilities. The lady gives him a scornful look, and he apologizes. She assesses Tatsuki's skills, noting he's a valuable asset to the country, with only 2 like him present and about 50 of his kind in the world, so he shouldn't be treated like a lab rat. Major Hazama insists he doesn't see him as a sibling who would break after a few tests. They continue their analysis, and the lady says she won't blame him for eventually using the flash cast. George expresses his shock over Masaki losing the match. Mikihiko interrupts and tries to attack him, claiming he can defeat George if Tatsuya can take down the Crimson Prince. He activates his CAD after using his illusion magic. Mikihiko lets out a sigh of relief, thinking he's beaten George, until George attacks him. Mikihiko realizes he lost, but to his surprise, Ryo rushes in to defend him. The horn sounds, and the screen shows that First High School won the match. The entire school cheers happily, while the trio discusses their victory. Mikihiko maintains a gloomy expression while Ryo talks about his strength. Tatsuya comments that his eardrums are hurt, so he can barely hear their conversation. He glances at the arena and sees Miyuki staring at him. The men at the round table are grumbling about First High's victory in the Monolith Code match. One of them mentions that if First High wins the competition, their losses could top $100 million. The others chime in, saying they won't just roll over and die from such a huge loss. So they need to come up with a solution, even if it's harsh. There's no reason to hesitate. Another guy suggests sending some agents to their collaborators, so that in the Mirage Bat match, they can force all First High athletes to withdraw, and the lucky ones will get to survive. Tatsuya tells Miyuki that the weather is perfect for the Mirage Bat, but it feels to him like the calm before a storm. Miyuki asks if he thinks something is going to happen, and Tatsuya says he has no proof either way. He reassures her that he'll protect her, so she has nothing to worry about. Mizuki stares at the contestants with her bare eyes, trying to sense any dangers around their athletes. Erika asks if she's okay, and Mizuki admits she's not feeling too great, but she has to get used to seeing what's in front of her instead of looking away. Erika expresses her concerns, asking if Mizuki plans to poke her eyes out, but Mikihiko interrupts. He says if Tatsuya's theory is correct, the culprits are using spirit magic to sabotage their opponents in the game, and Mizuki's eyes will help them detect it. He adds that there are barriers set up to reduce the effects of the push-in light, so he doubts there will be any lingering issues. Erika pokes fun at Mikihiko for taking responsibility for her, and they disagree with her. The competition kicks off, and the CAD of the First High candidate malfunctions, causing her to fall, but an official catches her. At that moment, Mizuki sees something that makes her gasp. Tatsuya watches the candidate being taken away and thinks she might be done for. He notices the brush after the magic fails and realizes that the resulting distrust in magic can lead to an inability to use it altogether. He gets a call from Mizuki, who tells him that she saw spirits flaring up around Kobayakawa's CAD before the incident. Tatsuya thanks her for the info and praises her for doing well. He tells Miyuki he might be able to figure out what caused the incidents. He encourages her to get ready for her match while he checks her CAD before it starts. Tatsuya heads to the administration headquarters to get Miyuki's CAD checked. He puts the CAD in a box, and the operative tries to mess with it once he realizes it belongs to a first-high student. Tatsuya notices and yanks him out of his seat in anger. He questions whether the guy thought Tatsuya wouldn't catch on to his tampering with Miyuki's property. He asks what the operative was injecting into the CAD. Sure, it's not a virus. The operative keeps quiet, and Tatsuya, furious, tries to take him down, but the chairman, Kudo, walks in and stops him. Tatsuya explains what happened, and Mr. Kudo examines the CAD. He finds a golden electron silkworm inside, explaining that it's a delayed activation sequence meant to interfere with electronic devices and cause malfunctions. Kudo asks the operative where he got the magic sequence, but he remains silent. The security team takes the officials away, and Mr. Kudo tells Tatsuya to head back to the stadium. He suggests Tatsuya should hold on to a backup CAD just in case. Tatsuya returns to their tent, and Miyuki rushes over to him. She says he's always getting angry for her, and he explains that it's natural for him to be protective because he's her older brother. He insists that getting angry on her behalf is the only natural thing in his life. Seigusa arrives and teases him for going wild over his younger sister. The match starts, and Miyuki asks Tatsuya if she can use the flying device he just invented. Tatsuya agrees, and Miyuki takes off. She dominates the competition with her unique flying magic, leaving everyone in awe. The men at the round table decide to deploy their number 17 generator to take down the competition by attacking some athletes. They all agree to remove the limiter on him to make him more effective. They realize there's no time to consider options, so they decide to cancel the tournament while creating a cover story for their clients later. The number 17 gets loose and tries to attack a young man walking by the building, but he gets beaten up. This young man turns out to be Yanagi, who is nearly an equal to Tatsuya. Yanagi questions who he's dealing with, but realizes he can't respond because he's an enhanced human. Another young man shows up and mocks him about the situation. Yanagi asks him to stop teasing and help him take down the opponent, but the lady with the major, Fujibayashi, uses a thunder needle to keep him under control. Miyuki visits Tatsuya in his room, and he asks if she needs him to do something. Miyuki requests that he stay by her side while she rests before the final, as per his advice. While she sleeps, Tatsuya watches over her, wondering what the criminals might do next if they're willing to use a generator to sabotage the tournament. The competition kicks off, and Miyuki uses her flight device right from the beginning, but to her surprise, the other schools also use flying magic. Tatsuya explains that the tournament committee must have leaked the details to other schools after checking Miyuki's CAD, as they accused her of cheating. Satsuya asks if they don't need to hone their skills, but Tatsuya tells her the device has a safety mode that controls their movements. Suddenly, the students struggle with flying, and Tatsuya confirms it's the safety mode at work. Miyuki wins the match as usual, and she celebrates. Seigusa raises a toast to Miyuki's victory and their school's overall win. Erika breathes a sigh of relief, noting that the NSC will conclude the next day. Shizuku adds that Jumonji's team is in lockdown following their win in the Monolith Code match. Mitsui asks where Tatsuya is, and Miyuki replies that he's gone to bed because he's tired. Mitsui agrees that he needs the rest, since he's worked really hard for all of them. Tatsuya receives information about the No-Head Dragon's base location from Ms. Ono. He requests additional data about the members, and she gives in to his demands. He hands her the insurance he promised and walks away while she drives off. Tatsuya spots a flash signal from a car and gets in to meet Fujibayashi. She inquires about Ms. Ono's identity, and he explains she's an operator from public safety. Fujibayashi questions her legitimacy, asking if she's a part-time operator, but Tatsuya prefers to work with novice, semi-professionals since they follow protocol for top-secret missions, which is safer than using jaded veterans. He adds that money talks, regardless of how unethical it might seem. Fujibayashi jokes that she should start charging him. Mr. Kudo visits Major Kazama to express his interest in Tatsuya, Miya's son, whom the Major took from the Yotsubas 3 years ago. Major Kazama reminds him that the Yotsubas still claim him. Kudo questions whether it's worth having such elite talent reduced to private bodyguard duty when he could be a prime asset for their country's magical forces. Major Kazama asks if Mr. Kudo aims to weaken the Yotsubas. Mr. Kudo explains that the Yotsubas will grow powerful and might even surpass the 10 master clans, and they are already superior in combat capability. He points out that the Yotsubas have turned their magicians into weapons, and although magicians were originally created for that purpose, they'll eventually be cast out from humanity due to the Yotsuba's deeds. Major Kazama tells Mr. Kudo that he understands the situation on his end just as well as he knows about theirs, and he understands the concern over Tatsuya. He explains that Tatsuya is a military asset far beyond Masaki Ichijo. He adds that it would be extremely cruel to expect him to take responsibility for the strategic weapon spells he has, which are restricted by multiple layers of safety locks. Tatsuya and Fujibayashi arrive at the No-Head Dragon's base location. The members discuss Tatsuya's situation and agree that eliminating him is their top priority. They They mention having no information on his identity or his family. Tatsuya takes out their bodyguards from a distance, disrupting their conversation. He calls his allies and reminds them of Fuji, as he's come to return the favor. One by one, he takes them down, including the generator bodyguards. Tatsuya talks to the boss's advisor, who claims they no longer want to interfere with the competition and will leave Japan immediately. Tatsuya manipulates him into revealing their boss's identity. He tells them they've incurred his wrath by provoking his only remaining emotion, forcing him to unleash his demonic power, so they deserve to face their end. Fujibayasha thinks to herself that the only feeling Tatsuya has, despite being created as a weapon, is his love for his younger sister. He finishes off the last man with a demon light spell, which the man remembers from 3 years ago in Okinawa. Yanagi praises Tatsuya for his good work the previous night. Tatsuya apologizes for dragging them into his personal affairs, but Yanagi reassures him it's not personal, as he was also attacked. The second guy mentions that both the internal defense and public safety were pleased with the intel he provided. Yanagi explains that the no-head dragons are sorcery boosters, amplifiers used by criminal organizations, with a core consisting of a magician's heartbeat. Users or producers of sorcery boosters can't be accepted. He adds that boosters that enhance a magician's military capabilities pose a military threat. Major Kazuma comments that North American intelligence shares the same view, so Mr. Mibu appreciates Tatsuya's efforts. The Monolith Code match concludes with First High School emerging victorious. Segusa informs Jumonji that she received word from the clan meeting that the 10 master clans don't care if it's a high school game. They cannot allow any result that undermines their power. Jumonji finishes her explanation by questioning if they're looking for a contest that would showcase the power of the 10 master clans. Segusa finds it absurd, saying if only Tatsuya had the blood of the 10 master clans in him, he wouldn't be subjected to this third-rate farce. Jumonji promises he'll handle it. First High School prepares for the last Monolith Code match, with Jumonji leading the team. Miyuki notices the Jumonji clan's phalanx and calls it incredible. The competition reaches a conclusion with their school as the overall winner. The competitors attend another grand banquet. Tatsuya sees Masaki talking to Miyuki and approaches them. He asks about Masaki's health, but Masaki brushes him off. Masaki expresses his surprise at realizing they're siblings. Tatsuya encourages Miyuki to dance with him while he dances with the other ladies on his team. Jumonji catches Tatsuya's attention and tells him to join the 10 master clans. He suggests Segusa as a potential bride for him, but Tatsuya instantly declines, saying he's just a student and has no interest in marriage or engagement. Jumonji tells him not to dwell on it too long. Miyuki steps in and asks what Jumonji wants with him. 2 inspectors receive a directive from their boss to prevent illegal immigrants from entering a small cargo vessel at Pier 5. They rush to the port, quickly overpowering the private security there. Inspector Chiba instructs Inspector Inagaki to stop a sailing ship, and he fires a warning shot. They search the ship but find it empty. Suddenly, 2 men emerge from behind some bricks and thank a young man, Mr. Zhou, for his hospitality. Miyuki visits Tatsuya in the computer room, asking to speak with him. She checks Tatsuya's screen, curious about his research. Tatsuya explains that he's looking into emerald tablets, not for the knowledge of alchemy, but for properties and formulas to create a philosopher's stone, which catalyzes spells that turn base metals into precious ones. He elaborates on this purpose, concluding that they need a way to store magic sequences, which is why he's studying the stone. Tatsuya reminds Miyuki of her reason for visiting, and she informs him that Ichihara is looking for him to discuss next month's thesis competition. Tatsuya heads to the geometry room, where the instructor explains that the Magic Association is hosting a thesis competition at the end of the month. He says if the NSC counts as a warriors contest, then the thesis competition is like the writers contest. The instructor asks Tatsuya if he'll join the team since the third candidate, Hirakawa, is unavailable. Tatsuya recalls that she was injured during the Mirage Bat. He questions why they'd choose a first-year student like him who didn't even apply. The instructor departs, stating Ichihara will provide more details. Ichihara tells him she personally recommended him because she turned down the other substitutes. Tatsuya asks why, and she explains her proposed team member wasn't suitable as their ideas were too different. Kei mentions that the competition will have a primary writer and 2 supporting writers. Suzunu adds that the theme she has in mind is technical feasibility of a gravity control, type magic thermonuclear fusion reaction. Tatsuya looks surprised, and Ichihara explains that the competition will be in 3 weeks, so she chose a topic he's already working on because she thinks he's the only one fit for the team. Ichihara also claims she has a good sense of character. Tatsuya agrees to participate, and Ichihara gives him the guidelines for the thesis and submission dates. Tatsuya shares the news with his colleagues, discussing the competition. He mentions they have 9 days to submit to the school but feels confident since he's familiar with the topic. Erika believes they will nail the essay with Kei on the team. When Miyuki and Tatsuya get home, they find Sayuri there. Miyuki doesn't greet her and heads to the kitchen. Sayuri asks if they still dislike her, and Tatsuya confirms that Miyuki does because their father remarried 6 months after their real mother passed away. Tatsuya inquires about her visit, and she explains they need him back at the company to help in the head office's research lab, which might mean he needs to drop out of high school. Tatsuya insists insists he can't leave first high school since he's still responsible for Miyuki. Sayuri notes that the Yotsubas would have hired another bodyguard for him if he hadn't agreed originally, adding that the company can't afford to keep a skilled member like him sidelined. Tatsuya reassures her he's not slacking off, pointing out that they recently landed a major order for flying devices from the USNA Navy, which could bring in 20% of the company's profits. Sayuri looks at him in defeat and asks him to analyze the relic of the Nino Magatama in the office. Tatsuya instantly recognizes it and starts asking questions. He realizes she has taken on the task of replicating the Magatama and concludes that she's being reckless. They discuss possible setbacks, but he agrees to her request after finding out that the relic can store magic sequences. He tells her to send the sample to R.D. Division 3, and she complains about it. Miyuki arrives, and Tatsuya tells her he'll step out for a bit to look for a woman who doesn't manage risks well. Tatsuya follows after Sayuri, but her car gets ambushed by some men. Luckily, Tatsuya comes in and clears them out, but shortly after, he gets shot in the chest by a sniper. He quickly heals himself and tracks down the sniper. He finishes him off. Tatsuya updates Major Kazama on the situation and assures him that they will investigate it. He adds that since the sniper has very distinct features, he will be easily identified. The call ends, and Miyuki approaches Tatsuya with tea in her hands. He compliments her new apron, and she blushes. Miyuki asks what Sayuri wants, and he tells her about her request for help with her work. Tatsuya mentions he chose to take the job because it seems interesting. Miyuki questions how Sayuri has such a device, and Tatsuya explains that she got it as a military request to replicate it. He thinks it's an outrageous request, but it's a worthwhile challenge because, with the system set up, they can equip troops with magic weapons without needing magicians, so he intends to solve the mystery. Some technical operators report their progress to their boss. He asks about the relic, and they explain that their attempt to steal it failed. He questions whether it can store magic sequences, but they say they can't confirm without having the device. He orders them to ensure they acquire it at any cost. Tatsuya goes to the library to gather materials for the thesis competition and runs into Saigusa. He tells her why he's there, and she suggests they discuss it privately to avoid disturbing the other students. Saigusa explains to Tatsuya that the importance of the competitor goes beyond just winning or losing, so she's relying on him. Tatsuya asks about Ichihara's motivation for the topic, and Saigusa shares that it's to make magic an essential economic factor, freeing magicians from being treated like weaponized humans. She adds that the gravity control type thermonuclear fusion is a significant step toward that goal, so with this year's thesis, Ichihara will take her first concrete step. Tatsuya is surprised to have similar thoughts as Ichihara, as he never expected anyone to have such a negative perspective. Later that night, Tatsuya's computer gets hacked, but he manages to regain control. The next day, he visits Miss Ono to tell her about the incident. He asks if she has any info on an organization that's been buying and selling magic documents lately. She reminds him of her confidentiality limits, but mentions that there have been several cases of unlawful entry in Yokohama and Yokosuka recently. Tatsuya wonders if this is connected to his issue. He discusses his experience with Kei, hypothesizing that the hackers were after magic documents, considering the timing. He checks in with Kei about his own situation, and Kei assures him everything's alright, but they need to report the situation to Ichihara. Mari walks in and discusses security with Tatsuya. She explains they need private bodyguards for the team members to protect their presentation materials and documents, since they'll be dealing with valuable items. She mentions that the teams in the contests are targeted by spies because of their potential, leading to robbery incidents. Tatsuya shares his own experience, but she confirms she hasn't heard of such severe cases before. Tatsuya tells her he doesn't need a bodyguard, and she accepts his decision. As Tatsuya leaves the store, he notices he's being watched. Kei and Kanan show up, and he shares his feelings with them. Suddenly, they spot a girl in their uniform running away, prompting Kanan to chase after her. Kanan tries to stop her, but the girl blinds her with a bright light. Tatsuya and Kei use magic to restrain her bike, but she activates the nitro function and speeds off. The spy girl abandons her bike, jumps into a black van, and they drive away. The criminal team and their boss discuss the situation, with the boss questioning if the girl is a middleman and how much they can trust Mr. Zhou. He inquires about the relic, and his staff reports it hasn't been recorded leaving the Four Leaves technology premises, but its location is still unknown. He orders them to keep an eye on Sayuri Shiba and asks about the house she visited. The staff informs him that her stepchildren live there. He asks for more details, realizing Tatsuya is the local collaborator's target for revenge. He instructs them to add First High School to their list of targets and to send more personnel to support the spy girl. He commands them to get her a weapon. Mizuki tells Tatsuya that she feels like someone is watching her at school. Mikihiko backs her up, saying he's noticed the spirits on campus have been acting strangely, and he suspects someone has summoned a Shiki. Leo asks if it's the Shikigami known as the spiritual beings, and Mikihiko confirms it. He thinks there's a spellcaster using a different kind of spell from his own, leading him to believe the caster is not local. Inspector Chiba and Inagaki are still looking for witnesses regarding an illegal entry. Chiba suggests they get their hands dirty for information by visiting a shady place. He takes Inagaki to a cafe called Roterwald and indicates that the owner knows everything while they walk in. They spot a woman sitting away from them, who later approaches and introduces introduces herself as Fujibayashi. Meanwhile, Tatsuya and his group enter a cafe to grab some tea. Tatsuya explains he'll be busy until the competition day because they have a lot to do, like practicing, making presentation models, and calibrating spells for the demos. He mentions that his main job involves fine-tuning spells for the demons. A spy follows them. The students chat about the competition location in a lively manner. Shortly after, Ryo and Ichika excuse themselves to confront the man tailing them. When he tries to scream for help, they tell him there's a barrier around them that will stop anyone from getting close. He tries to attack, but they quickly recover and overpower him. Ryo reassures the man that they don't want to hurt him, they just want to know why he's been following them. He agrees to talk and explains that his job is to monitor magic high school students to prevent advanced magical technology from falling into the hands of the East. If any advanced technology leaks that could lead to military action, he handles it. Ryo is curious why he's taking such a big risk, but to their surprise, the spy pulls out a gun and orders them to tell their friends to drop the barrier. Before leaving, he warns them to stay alert and not let their guards down because they're at school. He activates a smoke bomb and vanishes. Fujibayashi gets an alert while in her seat and hops into her car to check the surveillance cameras for the man. She registers Tatsuya's friends as a handful. Meanwhile, the Western spy gets attacked by Lu Gonghu, the man-eating tiger. Kei, Ichihara, and Tatsuya are testing the spell for the model they're developing. Tatsuya works hard at the computer, while Ichihara conducts the test, which ends up being a success. Kei reports to her that the room temperature plasma device worked perfectly, so phase 1 was a win. Mibu spots the spy girl glued to her phone. Deciding to go after her, the spy takes off running. Eventually, Mibu catches up with her, and Ichika shows up with Mihikiko. Mibu introduces herself as a fellow Course 2 student. She notices the girl's device, recognizing it as a wireless password tool used by spies. Mibu tries to persuade her to cut ties with the spies, sharing that she was once in her situation and it didn't turn out well. The girl confidently replies that she expects nothing in return, unlike Mibu. She then attacks them with a brightening light pill and tear gas, leaving them defeated until Leo arrives and knocks her down. They take her to the infirmary, and the doctor reassures them that she'll wake up on her own. Kanon asks the doctor to let her know when the spy is awake since she needs to get back to her duties. The doctor warns her not to complain if the girl escapes since she has no combat skills, but Kanon insists that she won't let her injured patients get away. Kanon heads back to the field to update Tatsuya, who tells her that Sekimoto is not on board with Ichika and Leo roaming around. Kanon approaches him and insists that they should be allowed to stick around since they're first-year students and have the right to witness the experiment. She adds that if there are any problems, the seniors on guard duty will take care of them, so he should let it go. Facing the two students, she instructs them to return to their classes, as the earlier incident could be seen as a 4-against-1 attack. Kanon gets a text and storms off while Sekimoto keeps staring at the model design, but Ichihara stops him from seeing it. She reminds him that he's not interested in that type of practical scheme. Kanon visits the infirmary and finds the doctor holding the spy girl down. She urges the doctor to let her go because she has questions for her. Kanon asks why the girl tried to steal the data. The girl reveals she intended to rewrite the program and disable the magic presentation for Tatsuya. As Kanon continues her questions, the girl breaks down in tears, confessing that she wants Tatsuya to panic a little and get one up on him. Kei calls her by her full name, Hirakawa Chiaka. He explains that she's the younger sister of Hirakawa Koharu, the girl who fell at the Mirage Bat, and he believes it's Tatsuya's fault that her sister fell, to which she agrees. Kei points out that if she blames Tatsuya, she should blame the entire engineering team. Confused and crying, Chiaka insists that Tatsuya is to blame because he knows about it due to who he is, and even the man said so. The doctor insists they stop, saying she'll hand her over to the Magic University-affiliated hospital at night. Ichika and Leo continue their journey to Erika's intended destination for Leo. Along the way, she mentions it feels too simple and that it's not over yet. She recalls the Western spy's words about their school being one of the East's targets, leading her to think the girl might be a decoy. She tells Leo they need to be Tatsuya's bodyguards, but they'll be focusing more on counterattacking than defending. For that reason, she says Leo needs a trump card, a move that can definitely take out his opponents. She warns him to decide if he's ready to kill or be killed if he wants a trump card. Leo agrees to learn the skill, and she offers to teach him the secret sword, Usuba Kaguru. Tatsuya and his colleagues discuss what to do about Chiaka. Someone suggests bringing in her older sister to talk to her about the situation, but Tatsuya says they shouldn't involve her since it wasn't her fault. Shizuku praises Tatsuya for being considerate, but he brushes it off, claiming he's just trying to avoid more trouble. Chen, the Eastern boss, and his bodyguard Lu Gonghu confront Mr. Joe and inform him that his collaborator, the girl, has failed. Joe responds that he anticipated this possibility, which is why he didn't disclose their identities. He says he has learned a lot from her and will assess the situation himself in the coming days. Chen expresses his trust in Joe to handle things and prevent any unexpected developments. Tatsuya informs his team that Ichika and Leo took the day off. Mitsui misinterprets the situation, wondering if they went on a date. Everyone chimes in with their thoughts on where they might actually be. Ichika and Leo begin their training, but Leo struggles to wield the secret sword. Ichika Ichika suggests reaching out to Tatsuya about it, but Leo declines, stating he doesn't want to burden him with more responsibilities, so he plans to work on it himself. Yumonji trains the protective details but ends up beating them up in the process. Segusa acknowledges his intention to boost their morale but worries they might lose confidence instead. Mari notes he has taken down 7 of them, prompting Segusa to ask who's left. Mikihiko frets and questions why he even showed up for training. He tries to calm himself, reminding himself it's just a mock battle, but he trembles in fear upon being noticed. He observes Jumonji's movements and then attacks him, leading to his defeat. Jumonji praises Mikihiko's skills as impressive. Mikihiko attempts to say farewell to his trainer, but he's urged to stay for lunch. Mizuki enters with the rest of the female team, and he decides to stick around. Mizuki approaches him, and the atmosphere turns awkward, causing her to almost trip before she storms out of the hall. Some girls encourage him to run after her, and he takes off at full speed. On his way, he bumps into a solid figure and apologizes. Miyuki and Tatsuya visit Mr. Yakumo, who advises Tatsuya to return a rare item he has. Tatsuya apologizes, saying he didn't know it was being targeted. Yakumo adds that when facing an enemy, he shouldn't lose his focus. Tatsuya notices a bird following them and tells Miyuki. They arrive at the FLT lab and discover their computers are being hacked. Chief Ushiyama urges them to secure their system and outrun the attack. Tatsuya informs him that he wants to keep a device in the lab. He spots the bird on the roof and destroys it. Mr. Chen tells his team that their tracking bird has been taken out, but they're sure Tatsuya will keep the relic in the FLT, hoping to access the documents and possess it. He orders his staff to cut off their hacking connection, confident that Tatsuya will lose faith in the lab's security. He instructs his bodyguard to eliminate the girl collaborator before Mr. Joe visits her. Tatsuya receives a call from Hirakawa about her sister's actions and notes that hacking is a crime. Miyuki walks in as he ends the call, and he explains that Hirakawa sent her sister's call logs as evidence, so they'll use whatever they can. Miyuki and Tatsuya step outside to find light rain. Miyuki says they won't be able to work outside and asks what Tatsuya will do. He mentions he has some debugging to do at the robot's research center, so he's heading out, encouraging her to go to the student council room. Tatsuya arrives at the research room, where the robot, Pixie, grants him access. He asks her to stay in standby mode while he works, but suddenly starts to feel sleepy. He realizes someone has infiltrated the room with sleeping gas, and Pixie offers him an oxygen mask, saying the circulation system is malfunctioning. He declines it but asks her to turn on the forced ventilation system. Once she does, he requests her to monitor the room and log everything that happens. He also asks her to prepare for rescuers' arrival, so she doesn't have to take them out. Not long after, Sekimoto sneaks into the room and sees Tatsuya sleeping. He tries to hack the system, but to his surprise, Kanan questions his actions. He lies about what he's doing, but she calls him an industrial spy. Sekimoto is shocked to see Tatsuya awake despite the sleeping gas. He attempts to attack Kanan with his spell, but Tatsuya knocks him out. Mari apologizes to Shu for calling him about a first high issue, but he reassures her that he's okay with it and wants to support her. Joe notices Lu Gonghu heading toward the girl's room and immediately rings the riot alarm. Mari and Shu rush to the 4th floor, realizing it's under attack. Shu is stunned to see the man-eating tiger. Lu Gonghu identifies him as Chiba, the illusion blade, and they engage in a fierce back and forth until Mari arrives and defeats him. Shu tells Mari about Lu Gonghu's true identity. Tatsuya reports the hospital incident to Fujibayashi and plans to hand over the footage for her investigation. Fujibayashi asks if he's about to finish off the fox, and he confirms. She informs him that the captain has also instructed her to wrap things up soon, so he should expect good news. She lets Inspector Chiba into her car and explains that she needs him as her hound dog for the fox hunt. Mr. Chen tells Lu Gonghu to ignore the girl and get Sekimoto out of prison. Tatsuya asks Kanan for permission to visit the prison where Sekimoto is held, but she refuses angrily, saying trouble follows him wherever he goes, and she doesn't want to get caught up in his problems. Mari calms her down and suggests that he go with her and Segusa, since they're visiting him the next day. Kanon agrees to let him go with them rather than his colleagues. Joe visits Chiaka in the hospital and hypnotizes her to make her forget about him because she feels bad for not meeting his expectations. Mari enters Sekimoto's prison room and uses scent-based mind control on him. She asks for his explanation, and he says he was supposed to find a relic in Tatsuya's belongings after copying the data from the device. Segusa asks if he knows about the relic, but he says he doesn't. Suddenly, an alarm goes off, and they go outside to see Lu Gonghu arriving. Mari tells Tatsuya to protect Segusa while she attacks him. Mari approaches Lu, saying she knows he's not ordinary. They fight while Segusa uses spells to defend her. Lu uses an invisibility spell to escape her, but he gets hit by Tatsuya's spell. They all cast spells on him, and he loses consciousness. Fujibayashi reports to Tatsuya that they captured the espionage because of Lu Gonghu's capture, but Mr. Chen got away. She thanks him for his help, but he brushes it off, saying he asked her to investigate. Tatsuya asks how the information about the relic got out, and she explains that the army's data leaked, so every magic research facility that got paid by the army was targeted. She wishes him good luck in the contest, and he sits down feeling very tired. Miyuki comes in to find him sleeping. She hovers over him wanting to kiss him, but she nearly falls when his eyes open. He helps her up, and she shyly runs back to her room, wondering what she just did. Tatsuya knocks knocks on her door and apologizes for making her worry. He encourages her to go to bed. Mr. Chen thanks Mr. Zhou for his help and for allowing him to start their next operation with the warship sent from his home. He asks for assistance in getting his second-in-command, Lu Gonghu, released, as he has been captured. Zhou agrees to help and mentions that Lu will be transported to a foreign prison in Yokosuka the next day, which presents an opportunity. In return, he asks Mr. Chen to stay away from the city during the operation. Mr. Chen assures him that Chinatown will be protected. He explains that their main target, the Kanto branch of the Magic Association, is near Chinatown and that they cannot avoid some skirmishes if they plan to go after magicians attending the thesis competition and their research data. Mr. Zhou expresses his gratitude for this consideration. Erika inquires about Tatsuya's role in the competition. He lets them know he will join the team by 8 since the competition starts at 9, and they will take the stage at 3. When Erika asks about the demo device, he replies that the school has hired a transport company for delivery. Leo asks to join the security detail, and Tatsuya agrees but questions their interest. Erika excitedly admits she has been training him every day after school, so she wouldn't seem unprepared if the incident resolves before they get there. Tatsuya looks at them, confused, as they both smile sheepishly at him. Tatsuya reassures them that they don't need to worry about guarding the demo device. They can just cheer from the audience or help protect them while seated. Ichihara visits Chiaka in the hospital with Hattori and discusses Tatsuya's stoic demeanor. She mentions that he doesn't notice her pain or seem to care. Ichihara tells Chiaka that Tatsuya scored perfectly on the magic engineering exams and the final exams for the first semester, creating a significant gap. Chiaka came in second with a score of 92/100, and Ichihara believes she can surpass him because she has studied him for 3 weeks and observed he isn't good with hardware. She encourages her to hold on to her bitterness to achieve her goal. They leave Chiaka's room, urging her to attend the competition, as she would find it rewarding. As they exit, Hattori tells Ichihara that she shouldn't push herself if she's not feeling well, but she insists she's fine and wants to use Chiaka's magic engineering skills for their school's benefit. Inspector Chiba and Fujibashi are out for a dinner date. He tells her it's to thank her, as they're close to solving the case, and he appreciates her support. Fujibashi invites him to join her at the Yokohama International Conference Center for the thesis competition, saying an acquaintance is participating and she wants to cheer him on. She suggests he can bring his subordinates, and they can carry weapons and live ammo. Inspector Chiba questions the implications of this, and she hopes everything will go smoothly. The next day at the conference center, Miss Ono is on watch and sees Fujibashi entering the first high waiting room. She scans her identity with her device to confirm her suspicions. Fujibayashi chats with Miyuki and Tatsuya, telling him that the mobile suit is done at Lieutenant Sanada's request and will be delivered that night. He praises the fast processing speed. She warns them to be ready for any incidents at the event because she doubts the case is fully resolved. She hands him a flashcard with info that will help him understand her point and then leaves. On their way to the hall, Miyuki and Tatsuya run into Masaki, who greets Miyuki warmly and mentions he's on patrol duty. Miyuki says it makes her feel safe knowing he's keeping an eye on them. She excuses herself and says goodbye. As Tatsuya passes by, Masaki signals that he looks forward to seeing him again. Erika spots Tatsuya and rushes over. He asks about Leo, and she gets defensive, saying she has no idea. He asks about the others, and she points out Mizuki and Mikihiko, who are getting cozy in front. Fujibayashi visits Ms. Ono, where they have a long talk. She warns her to stop watching her and her close friends, even though she knows Ms. Ono is just being loyal to her mission, hoping they can respect each other's boundaries. As Fujibayashi leaves, Ms. Ono confirms there's a secret relationship between her and Tatsuya due to her warnings. Fujibayashi learns that Lu Gonghu has escaped and reacts in surprise. The major tells her that his transport car was attacked on the way to Yokosuka. She asks why it had to happen today of all days. The major says they're ready to mobilize because of the weapon test scheduled for the next day in Hodogaya. He mentions he'll leave earlier and arrive soon, so she's counting on him. Hattori relays Saigusa's words to Jumonji, stating that Sekimoto and Chiaka were both under mind control, which made them go after the competition materials. Saigusa wants Jumonji to keep a close watch on the site and instructs them to monitor the perimeter of the conference center. Before they leave, he asks if the current situation feels off to them, and they both agree it does. He tells them and the other guard details on patrol to wear bulletproof vests. The competition starts, and First High School kicks things off with their demonstration. Ichihara gives an extensive presentation on their model, which earns applause from the entire hall afterward. Then, it's Third High's turn, and Tatsuya meets Cardinal George, who breaks down the skills they used, assuring Tatsuya that they'll win this time. Suddenly, there's an explosion that shakes the entire building. A truck loaded with explosives crashes into the Yamashita Pier Control, slamming into the control tower and causing an explosion. Inspector Chiba gets a call about the incident and tells Fujibayashi that he needs to head to the site. He urges her to reach out if she needs him. Tatsuya runs to meet Miyuki, who asks what's going on. He analyzes the vibrations and suspects they might be grenades that likely went off near the entrance. She wonders if the upperclassmen are okay, and he reassures her that there are professional magicians with combat experience on security detail detail, so they should be safe. Suddenly, men with guns storm the halls and try to attack them. They order the students to drop their devices and lie on the floor. Tatsuya uses long sight magic to assess their numbers and realizes there are only 6 of them. He charges at them, and they shoot, but he deflects the bullets. He takes them down while the other students handle the rest, leading to their arrests. Tatsuya decides to assist the other patrolling magicians outside, and his colleagues offer to join him. George stops him to ask about the magic spell he used, but Tatsuya brushes him off, saying he doesn't have time for a discussion. Saigusa tells Azusa to use her powers to calm the students down because panic could lead to injuries. Azusa mentions her abilities are suited for situations like this and assures her she will take responsibility. Azusa fires her calmness bow, and everyone in the room remains calm. Saigusa then explains that the city is under attack by terrorists and outlines 2 escape routes, which aren't very safe but better than staying in the hall. Some can use the tunnel to the shelter at the station, while others can head to the rescue boat headed for Mizuho Pier, though it's risky to go to the docks with heavy fire. She asks everyone to make their choices, and the school representative tallies the head count. Saigusa tells Azusa that she's leaving everyone in her care since she's the first high school's student council president. Tatsuya and his team reach the entrance. He takes cover as Leo charges ahead, boasting until Tatsuya pulls him back, warning him that the enemies are using anti-magician high-speed bullets. Mikihiko calls him heartless, while Erika says he saved Leo's life. Tatsuya asks Miyuki to silence the enemy gunfire, and she agrees, saying there are too many, so they'll have to combine their powers. Tatsuya, Erika, and Mikihiko rush out to take down the intruders, and they succeed. Afterward, Tatsuya tells them they need intelligence because something bigger and more serious than they expected is happening, and they could find themselves in a tough situation if they don't plan carefully. Shizuku suggests they go to the VIP conference room because they can gather information there. She mentions she visited that place with her father before, so she knows the access codes and security keys. In the VIP room, they notice a serious ongoing attack, and their best option is to find shelter, but they will have to go above ground. Tatsuya states he needs to destroy the demo devices before they leave. When they reach the room, they find upperclassmen still present, and he asks what they're doing. Ichihara explains she's deleting the data to prevent it from being stolen, while the others insist they can't just leave them behind. Jumonji arrives and asks why they haven't evacuated the building yet. Kirihara mentions that Azusa has taken the other students to the shelter through the underground tunnel. Tatsuya voices his concerns, pointing out that the underground tunnel isn't a direct route, meaning they might run into other groups and potentially face a direct clash. Jumonji tells Hattori and Sawaki to pursue them immediately, while he plans to patrol the area again to make sure there are no stragglers. Kei urges Tatsuya to help him disconnect the devices in the other room, while Mari insists they should meet in the green room afterward to strategize their next steps. They all gather in the conference room, and Saigusa tries to figure out what the terrorists want. She determines they're targeting the Magic Association's main database, since all vital info is being managed in Kyoto and Yokohama. Saigusa informs them that rescue ships will arrive in 10 minutes, but she's unsure if they can accommodate the number of people present. Ichihara mentions that Tatsuya's theory about the underground battle aligns with Hattori's report, but they should be able to handle it since the enemy's force is smaller. Mari tells them that their safest option is to find a way to the shelter. Tatsuya sees a vehicle coming through the walls and shoots at it right away. Saigusa asks what happened, but Fujibayashi interrupts their conversation by showing up. Saigusa is surprised to see her. Jumonji keeps patrolling but almost gets attacked by some UFOs, only to be saved by a counterattack. He recognizes it as a supersonic launcher as a car pulls up with a young man standing by it. Jumonji asks if he's with 101, and the young man confirms. He introduces himself as Captain Sanada of the JSDF 101 Independent Magic-Equipped Battalion. He praises Jumonji for figuring out his identity. Major Kazama enters the room and introduces himself. Jumonji recognizes him, and they exchange greetings. Fujibayashi updates Tatsuya on the current situation, saying their troops are battling the invaders now. Major Kazama tells Tatsuya he has to mobilize. The students look at him in shock, and Miyuki appears downcast. Captain Sanada informs him that the mobile suit he designed is ready, so he can suit up. Fujibayashi tells the other students she will protect them. Tatsuya turns to leave, but Miyuki stops him, transferring a massive light emission to him. She tells him he now has free reign, and he says his goodbyes. Masaki takes down the intruders while trying to escape with his third high school teammates. Hattori, Sawaki, and another colleague successfully attack the enemy groups. Azusa calms them down, saying they're almost at the shelter. Jiumonji asks Fujibayashi for a car to visit the Kanto branch of the Magic Association. He mentions that he may be the acting leader, but he still has to fulfill his duties as a member of the Master Clan Conference. She agrees and tells 2 officers to accompany him. Azusa gets excited as they arrive at the shelter and rushes to the entrance. Suddenly, a huge machine crashes into the building. Their instructor struggles to hold it back and urges them to leave quickly. Fujibayashi informs Saigusa and Miyuki. They'll arrive at the shelter soon, but they're stopped by 2 massive machines with machine guns. Miyuki freezes them before firing, and Saigusa finishes them off. They reach the shelter only to find the entrance wrecked. Saigusa wonders if the underground shelter is still standing, and Mikihiko confirms that everyone inside is safe. Saigusa says they can't enter through the the entrance anymore. Fujibayashi asks what they should do next, and Saigusa says she'll call her father for a helicopter to pick them up since there aren't too many of them. Shizuku says she'll do the same. Fujibayashi says she'll leave her subordinates with them then, but Inspector Chiba shows up with his colleague and insists they should protect them as police. He urges her to go defeat the enemy, and they both salute each other. Chiba calls her a hot woman as she leaves, but Erika tells him that she's not someone he can handle. He presents her with a gift he brought, but she looks at him blankly. The Asian military team reports that their resources are dwindling, and they've lost contact with all operatives headed toward the International Convention Center and parking lot. The leader instructs them to deploy their mechanized unit to shore immediately. Major Kazama arrives at the Hodogaya garrison with Tatsuya and Captain Sanada. He's in his mobile suit, and Sanada provides all the specifications for the new suit. The major tells him to join Yanagi's unit to defend the city. Tatsuya agrees right away and sets off. He starts by shooting down a surveillance drone flying overhead. The leader angrily slams the table, demanding to know what's happening. Masaki defeats all the terrorists around them. George informs him that the bus is about to leave, but Masaki says he wants to visit the Kanto branch of the Magic Association. George asks why he would want to do that, and Masaki explains that the magicians in the association must be taking action in this situation. He suspects they've summoned a volunteer army, so he plans to join them since he's an Ichijo. Masaki says it's his duty as a member of the 10 clans to protect the people, and he is also the eldest son. George offers to come with him, but Masaki tells him he needs to stay back to protect the students and help them escape so that he can focus. George agrees to help everyone escape and urges Masaki to come back safely. Ichihara asks when the helicopters will arrive, and Saigusa replies it will be in the next 20 minutes. Ichihara stresses they need to protect the civilians until then, and Saigusa reassures her that their protectors will do a good job, but she hopes they don't overexert themselves. Mikihiko and Kei inform their teams about the incoming enemy and charge to confront them. Tatsuya reaches Yanagi's location, where Yanagi tells him they now have a clear view of the people behind the attacks. He reveals a sorcery booster device that was acquired from the No-Head Dragons. Tatsuya confirms that the enemy is the Great Asian Alliance. Yanagi updates him about the civilians at the train station trying to escape via helicopters. He urges Tatsuya to assist with their rescue mission. At the station, helicopters arrive, but more mechanized units show up and release poisonous gas, almost hindering the choppers from landing. Yanagi's unit arrives and neutralizes the poison, allowing easier access to the choppers. Saigusa spots Tatsuya from the chopper and playfully makes a funny face at him before they take off. He jokingly calls her a barrel. Tatsuya reports to the major that Saigusa has boarded the helicopter safely and will pick up some other students along the way. Major Kazama instructs him to rejoin the unit once he confirms everyone has boarded safely. He takes down a gunman who tries to shoot at the chopper before it flies away. Jumonji saves some magicians from being defeated by the mechanized unit and magic monsters, lifting their spirits. Masaki arrives near Yokohama Chinatown, watching for the phantom spellcaster. He finds him and takes him down. Saigusa calls Miyuki, picking them up from her location. She reaches out to Kanon, but Kihihara and Kei get shot before they can arrive. Miyuki immediately comes down and freezes the terrorists. She calls out to Tatsuya for assistance. Tatsuya uses a restoration spell on them, and they instantly heal. He whispers to Miyuki, praising her for doing an excellent job. More mechanized troops charge into the city, but Tatsuya and Yanagi's unit confronts them. They end up defeating each other, but Tatsuya uses a restoration spell on his team. Standing over the troops, he hears some chants and utters the word Mahesvara. Inside the disguised Great Asian Alliance's landing ship, their troop leader gets a report that makes him exclaim. The report states that the mechanized troops sent in were wiped out in a fierce assault by an aerial unit using flying-type magic. The operative adds that they picked up the word Mahesvara while communicating with the mobile unit. The leader verifies if he means Mahesvara, the demon of Okinawa, dismissing it as a sick joke. Jumonji continues to lead the magicians in fighting against the terrorists. Masaki arrives at a huge gate and instructs the owner to open it, or he'll be seen as allied with the invaders. Joe steps out and introduces himself to Masaki, denying any affiliation with the invaders, claiming they are also victims. He says they are cooperating with him in hopes that he will recognize the truth. Masaki bows in gratitude for his help. In the chopper, Kihihara asks what's going on. Mari inquires about the type of spell Tatsuya cast, and whether it was healing magic. Miyuki responds that it's not healing magic, but a regrowth spell. She explains that he uses the spell to instantly heal any person, animal, or machine injured within 24 hours. She adds that it's unique magic that has affected his ability to use other magic easily. Saigusa understands that this is why his magic is unbalanced. Kanan remarks that it's a very special magic, and not being able to use other magic skills is a minor trade-off. Kei points out that he can save thousands of people with the spell, so his ambitions will know no limits. Miyuki clarifies that he can't just heal anyone because there's a cost involved. He feels the pain of whoever he is healing at least 150 times more than the injured person. Mr. Chen arrives in the city with his troop and Lu Gonghu. He informs them that they will launch their Plan B attack, announcing their destination is the Magic Association branch office. Mizuki shivers after sensing something. She tells Mikihiko she feels a beast-like aura near the Bay Hills Tower, where the Magic Association branch office is located. Mikihiko confirms it's an enemy attack. They look closer, and Mari realizes it's Lu Gonghu. They wonder how he managed to escape prison, and Mari declares they will be the ones to take him down. She asks Erika and Leo to help them. The four of them repeatedly attack him and fight against him until Segusa finally finishes him off. Mr. Chen walks into the Magic Association branch office and is surprised to see Miyuki there. She asks if he's the Ghost Walker, and he wonders why his spell isn't working on her. Miyuki freezes him, wickedly urging him to sleep well. Yanagi's team takes down all the straggling enemies and their mechanized units, while some of the enemies start to retreat. One of his teammates asks if they should chase after them, but Yanagi says no, suggesting they leave the stragglers to the backup unit and instead attack the enemy's ship directly. Fujibayashi quickly jumps in, stopping them from attacking the enemy's ship because it has hydrazine fuel batteries that could harm marine life if damaged in Tokyo Bay. He asks what their plan is, and Major Kazama tells them to fall back and report to base, mentioning that the other units will find an easier way to deal with it. Major Kazama asks Fujibayashi about the sweep operation, and she says there's only sporadic fighting but that should calm down by nightfall. Captain Sanada mentions a temporary tunnel will be opened the next day for an evacuation shelter that's buried under the station. The Major inquires about the enemy's vessels, and she replies they are heading towards Sagaminda, currently located between the Buso Peninsula and Oshima, so sinking it there shouldn't be a problem. The Major orders Sanada to unlock the third eye seal and instructs Tatsuya to use the third eye to sink the vessel using material burst. Tatsuya launches the attack while the Asian troops mock the Japanese military for not attacking based on sentiment. Their leader is shocked when they receive an emergency alarm on the ship. Fujibayashi confirms there was an explosion and assumes the ship has sunk, which Tatsuya confirms. He asks if there's any risk of a tsunami, but Fujibayashi assures him they are clear. She announces they've gotten word from GHQ about the Great Asian Alliance gathering at Genhai Naval Port, and they're ordered to handle the situation at Giogetto Base. Miyuki receives a call from her Aunt Maya, the head of the Yotsuba family. Maya comforts Miyuki during her tough time, assuring her of her safety with Tatsuya. She asks where Tatsuya is, and Miyuki explains he has follow-up duties, so he hasn't returned yet. Maya questions why he left his younger sister alone during such a challenging time. Miyuki reassures her aunt that Tatsuya's power always protects her, so there's no reason for her to worry. Maya says Miyuki's words have put her at ease and hopes they can visit the mansion soon. They say their goodbyes, and the call ends. Major Kazama shows the team an image taken 5 minutes ago, informing them that the enemy's Navy fleet has started mobilizing and will leave their port in 2 hours, while their own Navy fleet just started the previous day. He concludes that their only option is to engage the enemy's naval forces using land or air-based firepower. He suggests deploying strategic class magicians to wipe out their fleet. Tatsuya steps forward with the third eye and successfully destroys the fleet following the Major's instructions. Fujibayashi confirms that it has been obliterated.